Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of viewers aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. It really helps keep these long stories coming. Also, for even more police horror stories, check out my new channel. The link's in the description and pinned comment. I'd love it if you stop by and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. What time is it where you are, and which city are you listening from tonight? Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. The rain had eased to a soft drizzle by the time Sheriff Caleb Monroe pushed his cruiser past the county line sign. Just enough moisture to make the asphalt gleam like obsidian under his high beams. He glanced at the dash clock. 2:17 a.m. Another night swallowed alive by calls that went nowhere. He flicked the windshield wipers once, a single swipe, and they stopped, as if tired of fighting the elements. The low hum of the engine was the only sound in the cab, a faint companion to the memories that haunted him. Crackling radio chatter, broken promises to bring missing people home, the sting of regrets he'd buried under years of long hours. He eased the cruiser onto the gravel shoulder of County Road 18, the tires skittering over loose stones. In his peripheral vision, the streetlight above sputtered, flickering out and back on, casting shifting shadows among the pines. Monroe killed the engine and sat for a moment, listening for anything beyond the rain. Only the pitter-patter on the roof and the distant rumble of thunder. He exhaled slowly, his breath misting on the glass. He'd been dispatched to investigate a deserted pickup truck spotted off the old Marshall homestead. Ground so still, even the wind seemed to steer clear. He grabbed his flashlight and unlocked the cruiser door. The chill in the air pinched his cheeks. Sweat from the station's break room had dried long ago. As he strode toward the pickup, gravel crunched under his boots, each step amplified in the hush. The truck's tailgate was dented, its white paint streaked with mud. The driver's door hung ajar, rainwater seeping into the cab. He shone his beam inside. A single, blood-stained glove lay on the seat, its mate nowhere to be found. He bent to inspect the glove, fingertips brushing the soggy leather. The pattern matched the kind worn by local farmhands. He radioed in. "This is Monroe. I'm at the Marshall property. Plate checks to Marcus Lang, missing since 3 days ago. No sign of the driver." He waited for a reply that never came. The radio crackled once, then fell silent. Monroe scanned the tree line. Footprints led from the truck into the pines, 2 sets side by side, one deeper than the other. The heavier prints might belong to Lang, the lighter could be his own. He clicked off the radio, opting for quiet. He hated being alone out here, but calling for backup felt like admitting he couldn't handle a simple missing person check. He lifted his flashlight and entered the woods. The beam picked out low-hanging limbs, wet needles, and smears of mud on bark. He paused as the footing turned soft, a mix of mud and leaf litter. The prints continued deeper now, and he followed. The drizzle had muffled sound, but he swore he heard distant static, like a radio left on. He pressed forward, heart thumping a steady rhythm against his ribs. Emerging into a clearing, he found the old church, its steeple broken, windows boarded. The structure leaned slightly as though bored with uprightness. Monroe's flashlight beam swept the facade. The front door was ajar, revealing gloom inside. He stepped up to the threshold, rainwater trickling off his hat onto rotting wood. "Marshall's department," he called softly. "Sheriff Monroe, anyone here?" His voice sounded foreign in the void, swallowed by the rafters. No answer. He flashed the light inside. Pews lay overturned. A swath of white cloth draped the pulpit, slick with rainwater. He noticed something taped to the far wall. a photograph, yellowed around the edges, pinned beneath the scotch tape. He approached. The image was grainy. A black and white shot of his cruiser, parked under this very streetlight, headlights off, doors closed. His badge gleamed in the reflection. The date scrawled on the back, July 12th, 2019. 2 years ago to the day he'd been promoted to sheriff. He stumbled back, heart skipping. How had someone taken that photo? He thought he was alone in this county after hours. He turned, gun drawn, sweeping the beam across the shadowed nave. Static crackled on his radio again. He reached up, thumb hovering over the transmit button, but the sound cut before he could speak. Just a single, high-pitched beep. He spun toward the altar. The cloth had been pushed aside to reveal a lantern, its glass frosted with age and damp. Inside, an orange flame flickered, though nothing fed it. Monroe took a cautious step forward. The hum on the radio flared, then faded. He shone the light around the lantern and saw scrawled words on its base. "I see you." He froze, fingertips tightening around the grip of his flashlight. The church door creaked behind him, a low, deliberate groan. Monroe exhaled, steadied himself, and in the hush that followed, he realized he wasn't alone. And he never had been. Sheriff Monroe's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he wiped the rain from his brow and stepped fully into the church, the wooden threshold groaning beneath his weight. The lantern's flame danced erratically, casting long, twitching shadows that seemed almost alive. He swept his flashlight over the overturned pews and broken hymnals strewn across the floor. Each pulse of light revealed something new. Footprints in the damp wood, small but deliberate, leading from where he'd entered deeper into the nave. He crouched to inspect them. A mix of boot treads, one pair clearly matching his own, the other narrower, more clerical in profile. He rose, hands trembling despite training drilled into muscle memory. Every instinct screamed to get back up, but he kept his finger off the radio. Something in this place felt off. Too personal, too controlled. He pressed forward, the static hum returning softly, as if someone had tucked a small speaker behind the veil of sound. He followed the footprints toward the back of the church, where the plaster wall behind the altar was chipped and damp. His light caught flickering reflections on the surface. Pictures, dozens of them, taped without care. Monroe approached, stomach tightening. Among the images were parishioners long gone, their faces pale and frozen, as though caught at the exact moment fear flared in their eyes. One photograph in particular made his chest seize. Deputy Lawson at the night briefing, smiling confidently. Underneath, scrawled in red pen, were the words, "Count the hours." Monroe's breath hitched. Count the hours. What did it mean? He shone his beam lower and saw a crudely drawn clock face etched into the plaster. The hands pointed to exactly 3:02. He fumbled for his own watch. The digital display read 2:45 a.m. He swallowed. Maybe the writer of these messages was toying with him, or perhaps the church obeyed its own twisted time. He traced the etched numbers with a gloved fingertip. Beneath the clock face, someone had scribbled a phone number in hurried script. It ended with his own badge number. He snapped a mental photo. Whoever had done this knew him, and had left breadcrumbs like a cruel game. The radio emitted a low, rhythmic clicking, as if someone tapped a Morse code. Monroe jerked his head toward the sound, shining the flashlight at the ceiling. The static sputtered, then formed a clearer pattern. 3 long bursts, 2 short, 1 long, a repeated sequence. He pressed his ear to the wall, trying to catch the rhythm. His training stuttered back. SOS, maybe? But why broadcast that code here? He stepped back, unsettled, as the lantern guttered and went out, plunging him into near darkness. The radio sputtered, then cut to dead silence. He clicked off his flashlight to spare his eyes the transition, letting them adjust. In the near pitch black, he could just make out the faint silhouette of the pulpit. Something gleamed there, a metallic glint in the gloom. He reached out blindly, fingers brushing a cold surface. He found the object, a small black box, no larger than a deck of cards, taped to the edge of the pulpit. On its side, a single red button and a tiny screen flickered with grainy, looping footage. He pried it loose, careful not to disturb the tape too much. A soft click sounded behind him. He spun, gun drawn, but saw nothing beyond the rows of smashed pews. His earpiece crackled. Dispatch, asking if he was all right. He hesitated, then answered, voice tight. "I found a device. Sending coordinates. I need tech out here." He clicked off before they could reply again. He knelt to power on the box. The screen glowed, projecting a shaky handheld video feed. Rain-slicked headlights swept past a tree line at high speed, then a muffled scream. The camera jerked violently, pointing toward a broken window at the rear of the church. The frame cut to faded daylight, sunlight on wet grass. A hand, surprisingly pale, reached out and traced Monroe's name carved into the wood. The recording ended on a shot of his own cruiser's rear bumper, a mud smear forming a handprint on the license plate. Monroe's skin pricked. He looked around, flashlight back on. The beam illuminated a motionless figure standing at the back row. A man in clerical garb, collar tight, face obscured in shadow. Monroe aimed his flashlight and fired one quick burst. The figure vanished into the darkness as if dissolved by the light. Only the echo of his heartbeat filled the vault of the church. He rose, the floorboards groaning under him. His hands clenched the box like a bomb. The door behind him slammed shut, though the storm had ceased outside. He sprinted toward it, yanking at the latch. It held fast. The static returned on his radio, louder this time. Frantic, urgent, as though someone pounded at the mic. He fumbled with the controls. Dispatch came through, voice unnerved. "Sheriff, you there?" We lost tone. "Please respond." He slammed his palm on the dashboard, radio clicking off. The silence thickened. He turned back to the pulpit, scanning the altar cloth fluttering in no breeze. The photographs tacked to the wall seemed closer now, their eyes following him. He noticed a single shine under one frame, a key hanging from a nail. He strode forward, snatching it free. It was a battered skeleton key. He circled the altar and found a locked door in the side wall, hidden in shadows. The key fit with a rusty clunk. He stepped through into a narrow corridor lit by dim wall sconces, each backed by peeling wallpaper. The corridor sloped downward, and faint sloshing water echoed from below. He advanced, gun raised, heart thundering. At the end, a heavy steel door marked cellar. He inserted the key, door swinging open on squealing hinges. Inside was a small room. Nothing but a concrete floor slick with moisture. Stone walls mottled with mold. Along one wall stood shelves crowded with neat rows of jars, each containing a tangled mass of wires and circuit boards. He lifted one. A surveillance camera with its lens cracked. Another held a microcassette recorder labeled C-18. Papers lay strewn on a table. Maps of county roads, patrol schedules. Names of deputies circled in red. He realized with a lurch that the hand-drawn clock in the church, count the hours, was marked on these same schedules, dozens of times over. A soft drip echoed behind him. He spun to see water oozing through a crack at the base of the far wall. The jagged gap widened with a settling groan. Monroe signaled silently, sweeping the flashlight. The walls themselves felt alive, seething with unspoken intent. He touched the crack. The surface gave way under his fingers, revealing a crawlspace beyond. He hesitated. Behind him, the radio let out a single, piercing beep, the kind that signals a mayday or a final warning. Monroe exhaled, steeling himself. He crawled into the opening, flashlight tucked under one arm, gun in hand. The crawlspace was cramped, the ceiling low, and water pooled at his knees. The beam caught a glint, another photograph wedged between the stones. He braced on one elbow, pried it free. In the dim light, he made out the face of the missing man, Marcus Lang, his eyes wide with terror. Then, beyond the photograph, a narrow tunnel led off into absolute black. The static on his radio pulsed again, and through the murk he heard, was it, the softest whisper, "Caleb." The crawlspace tunnel swallowed Sheriff Monroe's flashlight beam in a narrowing ring of light as he crawled forward, water lapping at his knees and chilling through his uniform. Each drop of water that dripped from the low ceiling echoed like a slow metronome, marking time he couldn't afford to waste. He paused as the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, its walls slick with moss and veins of moisture. The air was stale, musty with rot, and faintly tinged with something sweeter, almost metallic. Monroe's heart thumped so loudly he feared it might give him away. He swept the beam across the floor. Scattered debris, rusted tools, old wiring, a single work boot missing its partner, crunched under his hand as he crawled forward. His fingers brushed a length of coiled rope, frayed and stained. He lifted it, noting the fibers were thick enough to bind a grown man. Lang's boot sat atop it, its laces undone. Monroe's breath caught. Footprints beyond led into a darkness so complete that the beam swallowed itself. He untied his own boots, slipping them off and padding forward barefoot, relying on silent steps. As he advanced, faint sobbing reached him, low and ragged, echoing off unseen walls. He froze, straining. The sound came from ahead, somewhere beneath the church, and it carried a childlike tremor. Monroe's jaw clenched. No children had been reported missing here. He whispered into his radio mic, "Dispatch, Louisville to Sheriff. Possible victim in subterranean chamber. I'm proceeding." The static crackled, but no reply came. He exhaled, pressing on. The tunnel ended at a crudely hewn stairway leading upward, wooden planks slick with mold. Monroe climbed on hands and knees, each rung groaning under his weight. When he emerged into near darkness at the top, he found himself back in the church sanctuary. Only it was different. The altar was gone, replaced by a raised platform of packed earth crisscrossed with shallow trenches. Monroe knelt to inspect. Each trench had a length of rope laid at its bottom. From the trenches, dozens of clay flower pots rose on short, wooden stakes, each pot turned upside down and nailed shut. His beam caught movement, a flicker of shadow among the pots. He swept the light closer and saw that from under one upturned pot spilled a child's shoe, tiny and black, its Velcro strap torn. Then another pot rattled faintly, as though something alive lurked beneath. Monroe's pulse stuttered. He shone the flashlight upward to the gallery, where broken glass from the boarded windows scattered faint moonlight onto the earthen mound. He climbed to the edge of the platform and peered down. In the center lay an old radio speaker, its grill caved in. It trembled with a low buzz that matched the heartbeat of the church above. Monroe crouched, reaching for the speaker through the tangled shafts of rope. Beneath it, etched into the platform, were words in cramped handwriting. "The lost speak in silence." He snapped a photo with his phone and pulled back, uneasy. A sudden clatter behind him made him whirl around. boots scrabbling on wet wood. He swept his light across the gallery. There, a figure crouched atop a fallen pew, face hidden in shadow, rocking back and forth. Monroe raised his flashlight, illuminating a woman. Her hair matted, clothes torn, eyes wide with terror. She stared at the pots, then at the sheriff, recognition dawning. "Help me," she whispered. "He said I wouldn't scream." Her voice cracked as tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't want to be here." Monroe stepped forward, lowering his gun. "Ma'am, I'm here to get you out." He reached for her arm, but she recoiled, trembling. "He'll hear us. Always listening." She pointed toward the back wall where, among the boarded windows, lay a narrow hatch set flush with the wood. Monroe's jaw tightened. He'd missed that hatch on his earlier sweep. The hatch bore a tag. For the final vigil. He pried it open, revealing a ladder descending into deeper darkness. He shone his flashlight down the ladder. Nothing but black. The woman's sobbing grew louder, fractured in the still air. Monroe knelt beside her, voice quiet. "I need you to trust me. Can you climb? Down and I'll follow?" She stared at the hatch, tears dripping onto the dusty wood. "He follows me, Sheriff, even here." She shivered, hugging herself. Her eyes darted to the pots. "One's missing." Monroe's beam tracked to a pot knocked over. Its stake snapped. The empty ground beneath showed fresh scratches in the mud, fingernail marks. His breath hitched. The woman sobbed, rocking. She pressed her hands to her ears. The silence. Its screams. Monroe remembered the etched clock, the code, the whisper of his own name. They're always watching. Always waiting. He motioned toward the ladder. "We don't have time." He offered his hand. The woman hesitated, then grasped it. Together they descended, her weight lean and trembling against him. The hatch closed above with a thunk that seemed to seal out the night, but also to lock them in. Below, the ladder ended at a concrete floor strewn with scattered straw and broken glass. The narrow tunnel opened into a long, low-ceilinged corridor lined with cells, each heavy metal door hanging open or torn from its hinges. Monroe's light flitted across the first cell. Inside, the walls were scrawled with messages. "Don't trust the bells. He counts the hours. Mercy is for the living." The woman sank to the floor, burying her face in her knees. Monroe pressed a hand to her shoulder. "We need to keep moving." He advanced, flashlight sweeping the cell doors lacquered with rust. At the end of the corridor, the air grew warmer, damp shifting to rank dread. He reached the last cell, its door ajar. Inside, a small cot lay empty, mattress stained, pillow shredded. On a shelf above a steel basin did he see it. Lang's missing cell phone, its cracked screen lit by a stray beam of flashlight. Monroe knelt, picking it up. His heart stuttered as the screen flickered to life, revealing security camera footage. The front of the church, the broken door, the pews smashed. Then the camera swung around to capture Monroe and the woman descending the ladder. The final frame showed Lawson's badge clipped to his belt, with Monroe's gloved hand reaching for it. Monroe's breath caught. He dropped the phone, spinning toward the woman. She looked up, tears shining in her eyes. "He said I couldn't leave," she whispered. "He said he owns this place. Owns us." She reached into her coat and pulled out a tarnished sheriff's star, Monroe's star, its pin bent. She tossed it into his hand, his name etched on the back. Caleb Monroe. He stared at it, voice catching. "How? Why?" A metallic creak echoed from the corridor behind him. Both turned, flashlight beams intersecting in the gloom. The cells behind them lay empty, yet the air vibrated with low breathing. Monroe signaled the woman to stand. She shook her head. Number not here. But before he could respond, the lights overhead flickered on, blinding them, and he heard a slow, deliberate clap echoing off the concrete walls. The darkness, after the lights snapped off, was thicker than oil, pressing against Monroe's lungs as he struggled to breathe without panic. The clap, slow, deliberate, mocking, reverberated off the concrete and steel, a taunt in the pitch black. Sheriff Caleb Monroe pressed his hand against the woman's back, guiding her to her feet. Her sobs had quieted to whimpers, each one a ragged plea for safety. He clenched his flashlight, flicking it on and off in a shaky rhythm, trying to orient himself. The glow was feeble, more suggestion of shape than illumination, but it revealed the corridor behind them, stretching into pitch black on both sides. No sign of the ladder they'd climbed down, no hatch above, only the open row of empty cells and that mocking clap, now distant, echoing. "Stay close," he hissed. "I'm going to find a way out." He started forward, the woman's hand grasped in his free one. Each footstep echoed hollowly in the tomb-like corridor. Somewhere down the hall, metal scraped against concrete. A cell door moving on its hinges, perhaps shifted by the tremor of someone, or something, walking. Monroe froze, flashlight trained on the nearest door. He eased closer until the beam caught a name tag stamped on the rusted metal. Deputy Lawson. The door hung open by one hinge, sagging. Inside lay a tangle of torn clothing, and a single leather glove identical to the one he'd found in Lang's truck. He swallowed hard, fingers curling tighter around his gun. The woman trembled beside him. "That's his cell," she whispered. "He forced me here, said he'd lock me in forever." Her voice trailed off. Monroe offered a curt nod, jacked his flashlight to eye level, and swept the beam down the corridor. The clap had receded, replaced by soft dripping water that fell in irregular intervals, a metronome counting down. Monroe exhaled and pressed on, passing the Lawson cell. He heard the water before he saw it, a slow trickle from a crack in the ceiling. He ducked beneath a low beam and caught sight of water streaming down the wall. As he moved past, his light illuminated something scrawled beneath the crack. "Time bleeds here." He lingered, heart thudding, thinking of the etchings in the church, the clock hands, the whispered code. Time had become someone's weapon, bleeding seconds into terror. He tore his gaze away and continued, the woman's panicked breaths close behind. The corridor branched ahead. To the left, a blank wall dark as ink. To the right, another tunnel disappearing into deeper gloom. Monroe paused. The dripping grew louder from the right. The left was silent, but the last thing he needed was a blind corner. He turned toward the right, stepping into the narrower passage. This tunnel sloped gently downward, the air growing warmer, heavier with the stink of damp earth. The walls here were stone, covered in dark green moss that dripped onto the slick floor. Monroe flicked his flashlight beam along the moss until he noticed patterns. Imprints in the stone, slender and looped like rope, etched into the surface. They wound along the wall in a continuous spiral, vanishing into darkness. He crouched, tracing one with his finger. "We circle back." He straightened, uneasy. Circling back to where? To the church, the crawlspace. He spun and realized the tunnel behind him had vanished, swallowed by the black. The beam shook as he pivoted. "Sheriff?" The woman's voice trembled. He turned to her, forcing steadiness into his tone. "It's okay. We just need to keep going." She nodded, wiping tears from her cheeks, and followed as he moved deeper. The tunnel widened again into a large cavern, its ceiling lost in shadows too high to see. Monroe adjusted his beam upward. The light caught the glint of metal rafters and hanging chains swaying ever so slightly, though no breeze stirred. Below, thick puddles formed shallow lakes reflecting fractured light. At the far end lay a stack of old church pews piled haphazardly like driftwood after a flood. He approached, boots splashing. The pews were wet, slick with moss and grime. Monroe shone his light between the gaps and froze. Beneath the topmost pew lay the body of Marcus Lang, sprawled face down, clothes torn, blood dark and congealed beneath his chest. Monroe knelt, checking for a pulse. None. The body was cold. He stood, jaw clenched. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The woman gasped and covered her mouth with her hand, backing away. Monroe turned and examined the cavern walls. The dripping from above pooled into rivulets that fed the shallow lakes. Each pool's surface was still, except for occasional rings where a drop fell. A faint glow came from the largest pool. At the center, submerged lights beneath the water glowed dim, as if someone had wired the cavern with underwater lamps. The glow pulsed, slow and rhythmic, matching the dripping overhead. The water's surface rippled inward from the center, though there was no visible disturbance. Monroe took a cautious step forward. As he did, his beam caught movement at the edge of one pool. Strands of black hair floating just beneath the surface, shifting as if something alive drifted there. "Caleb," the woman's voice quavered. "The hair, it's hers." Monroe looked closer. Beneath the water, a thin arm extended, pale and lifeless, as though reaching for salvation. He swallowed. He lifted his flashlight to its brightest and trained it on the water. The glow intensified, and the submerged object resolved into a body clothed in a tattered dress. The same woman, her hair fanned around her head like kelp, eyes wide in eternal terror. Monroe's breath caught. He aimed his gun and fired a single shot into the water. The bullet tore through the water with a muffled hiss, sending a shockwave through the pool. The submerged lights flickered and died. In the sudden darkness, one hulking shape rose from the water, dripping black, its face obscured. It stood at the water's edge, where Monroe and the woman now trembled. The creature, no, the woman from the church, hair plastered to her face, grin slashed across her features like a river in moonlight, stared at Monroe. Her voice came as the faintest echo in his mind, not through ears. "We're all here, Caleb." He fired twice more, light flashing with each report. She vanished into the waters, taking the corpse with her. The cavern went silent, except for the echo of his gunshots and the settling chains above. He turned to the woman beside him. She had sunk to her knees, eyes closed, rocking. Monroe holstered his weapon, kneeling to check her pulse. She was alive, though barely conscious. He grabbed her arm. "We have to move," he snapped. She nodded, fear etched on her pale face. Monroe hauled her to her feet and pulled her away from the pool of drowned ghosts. He scanned the cavern for exits. The only way back was the tunnel they'd entered, but the spiral imprint suggested that path curved, leading them in circles. He scanned overhead and saw a faint sliver of daylight, leaking through a crack in the ceiling high above. He raised his flashlight to the beam, and nothing. Darkness swallowed everything but that thin line of light. He climbed onto a pew, then another, until he could reach the moss-covered wall. He planted his boot where the moss parted, hands stretching to the crack. He felt the cool air from the outside, felt the promise of open sky. He began to claw at the stones, prying at the edges. The woman crawled up behind him, offering her hands for support. Together they worked at the crack, fingers bleeding on sharp edges. The cavern shook as though struck by a massive blow. Dust and bits of stone rained down. The crack widened, letting in a blast of night air and the distant call of an owl. Monroe wedged his flashlight in his teeth and used both hands to pry the stones free. Finally, the stones gave way enough for him to force his shoulder through. He swung his legs up and over, crashing onto damp earth under the night sky. Light flooded his vision, stinging his eyes. He rolled to his side and coughed. The woman's hand landed on his shoulder. He looked up and saw her crawling through, clothes soaked, hair plastered to her face. He reached down and hauled her up. Both collapsed on the grassy bank outside, the tunnel entrance collapsing behind them with a final groan. They lay there, chest heaving, as the storm clouds parted and the moon emerged, pale and cool. Monroe sat up, scanning the tree line. He saw a black pickup parked at the edge of the clearing, its windows dark, engine off. Beside it, footprints leading into the woods. He rose slowly, offering his hand to the woman. She took it, and together they approached the truck. The door swung open, but the seat was empty. The radio in the cab crackled to life. Static, then faint music. A children's lullaby, warped and slow, playing over and over. No frequency displayed, no station identified. Monroe grabbed the handset, voice tight. Lang? Lawson? Anyone? If you're out there. A child's giggle echoed through the speaker, and the cab went silent. He slammed the door shut, gun raised, ready for whatever, or whoever, would come next. The lullaby's warped melody hung in the humid night air like a promise of things undone. Sheriff Monroe's grip on the radio handset tightened until his knuckles whitened. He scanned the tree line, every shadow a potential threat. The woman at his side, shivering from the cold, from shock, pressed herself against his thigh, eyes darting toward the dark. Monroe's pulse hammered. Adrenaline blurred his senses to white-hot focus. He lowered his voice to a whisper, more for himself than to reassure her. Stay close. We'll find an active unit and get you safe. He edged around the pickup, noting that the license plate read the same as Lang's. ARK4MORROW. His stomach twisted. Whoever orchestrated this had taken the missing man's rig and repurposed it as part of the trap. He keyed the radio mic. Dispatch, this is Monroe. I'm at coordinates, just north of the Marshall homestead. Female victim in tow. Pickup here is stolen. No sign of suspects. Request immediate backup. Static crackled, then dispatch confirmed. Units are en route. ETA 15 minutes. 15 minutes in this darkness felt like an eternity. Monroe slipped the radio into his jacket and switched off the speaker, unwilling to waste battery or betray his position if the device fell into the wrong hands. He motioned for the woman to follow and moved off into the woods, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. Branches whipped at his face. The undergrowth closed in. Each step a careful negotiation between speed and silence. The lullaby faded behind them, replaced by the scuff of boots and the susurrus of wind-stirred leaves. Occasional hoots of distant owls and the drip-drip of water that lingered from the recent downpour were the only ambient sounds. Monroe fought the urge to sprint. He needed to conserve strength for whatever lay ahead. They reached a shallow depression in the terrain where broken tree limbs lay strewn as though tossed by a violent hand. The woman pointed with a trembling finger to fresh footprints in the mud. Small, barefoot, too small for any adult. Monroe knelt, tracing the outline. He counted 5 toes, each imprint perfectly defined in the soft soil. He followed the trail a few paces until it disappeared under a moss-covered log. Something about that log felt deliberate, placed there to conceal what lay beyond. Monroe hefted his flashlight higher to peer beneath, his breath catching when he saw a child's small sneaker, blood-stained and abandoned, sole down against the earth. Fear coiled in his chest. A missing child? He swallowed hard, mouth dry. He radioed through gritted teeth. Dispatch. Possible juvenile victim. I'm going to need medical, search and rescue. Everything you can spare. No reply. The radio, once a lifeline, now felt unreliable, as though this place swallowed transmissions the same way it trapped people. He clicked it off, voice cold steel in his jaw. It was up to him now. He pivoted to the woman. Tell me what you saw before you ended up here. Her shoulders shook as she recounted, voice barely audible. Stepping into the church, the candle circle, the photos of her. Speaking in terse fragments, she revealed that she had once worked as a nurse's aide at a nearby rehabilitation clinic. An older patient there had spoken in riddles about the sanctuary beneath the sanctuary, and how they all heard the silence. Monroe considered that a clue. Maybe the abductor had researched local legends, or heard rumors of underground spaces around the church. He guided her through the mud and brambles, clearing a path to the old service road that led south toward the county line. They emerged onto the road's edge, and Monroe paused, listening. The night was too quiet. No approaching sirens, no rustle from the woods, only the steady drip-drip of water from the leaves overhead. His flashlight beam caught a distant glint, a reflective strip on the back of a coat lying half-concealed in tall grass. He strode forward, feet sinking into mud. The woman followed, silent now. Monroe knelt beside the coat and recognized the pattern immediately. Deputy Lawson's rain jacket, torn at the shoulder. A second glove, identical to the one from Lang's truck, lay nearby. He scooped it up, noting its interior was caked, crusty with dried mud and something darker. A sudden bang echoed from the woods to their left, like the slamming of a heavy door. Monroe's heart leaped. He pointed his flashlight toward the sound, sweeping back and forth. No shapes moved, but the beam caught an object hanging from a low branch. A battered recorder, its tape spool spinning slowly, playing back the same lullaby. He clicked it off. The woods went silent once more, pressing in on him. The only movement was the woman's tear-stained face, illuminated by the flashlight's unsteady beam. They moved on, Monroe scanning both sides of the road. Branches snagged his coat sleeves, mud squelched underfoot. He thought of Lang's body in the cavern, the drowned woman, the whispered threats. Someone here wanted him to feel powerless, to question every step, to wonder who else, besides Lawson and Lang, had vanished into these shadows. At the crest of a small hill, they spotted the glow of headlights and the blur of taillights slicing through the trees. Backup. Relief thrummed through Monroe until he noticed the lights were on an unmarked van. No sheriff's logo, just tinted windows and a sliding side door. Monroe raised his hand in greeting. The van slowed but didn't stop. Its headlights pulsed, then receded, speeding off along the service road they'd planned to take. Monroe cursed under his breath. He sprinted after it, the woman stumbling to keep pace. His gun arm shook. Flashlights bobbed in the distance as deputies converged on their location from the opposite direction. He called out, "Stop that van." But the vehicle was already disappearing around a bend, headlamps becoming pinpoints in the night. He skidded to a halt, mud slinging up around his boots. The deputies arrived, vehicles screeching to a stop behind him. Red and blue lights carved the trees into strobing silhouettes. Chief Deputy Carrick leapt out, flashlight in hand. "Sheriff, we heard gunshots. Where is she? Are you both all right?" Monroe spun, catching his breath. He looked at the woman, who trembled uncontrollably. "This," he said, holding up the glove and jacket, "and that van. Someone else is out there watching, playing us." Carrick's face paled. He holstered his light and pressed the radio. "Dispatch, this is Carrick. We have multiple victims. At least 2 missing persons, possible third juvenile. 1 suspect at large in an unmarked van. Units in pursuit. He turned back to Monroe. "You okay?" Monroe nodded numbly. "She's alive. We need search teams along the service roads. Every cabin, every shed, that van, it's our best lead." The woman's sobbing grew louder. Monroe guided her toward a patrol car. She climbed in, and Carrick handed her a blanket. Monroe gathered evidence: the glove, the recorder, the jacket. He slipped on rubber gloves, careful to preserve the fingerprints. He jotted notes on a pad, mind racing faster than he could write. As he looked up, his radio crackled to life with dispatch traffic. "All units, be advised. Incoming 911 call from number ending in 5810. Caller is static, calling from a location on County Road 18. Says, they're all here." Monroe's blood ran cold. He recognized that phrase. It was scrawled in the tunnel beneath the church. "They're all here." He gripped the radio mic. "Dispatch, patch that caller through." He pressed the button. A moment of static, then a voice, soft, distant, whispering. "Shh, Sheriff Monroe. So good to see you." The transmission cut abruptly. Monroe stared at the radio, heart pounding. The deputies around him tensed, hands hovering on holsters. The woman in the car whimpered, pulling the blanket tight around her trembling frame. Monroe wiped rainwater from his brow, ear against the radio speaker. He keyed the mic again. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then faint laughter, childlike, echoing, impossible to pinpoint. It thrummed in his bones, a reminder that the missing were not yet all found. He switched off the radio, voice low and fierce. "Lock down the area. No one in, no one out. And someone get me that service road camera feed, now." Carrick nodded, barking orders to the other deputies. Monroe took a deep breath, bracing himself against the patrol car. The night seemed to draw closer, eager to swallow them whole. He looked up at the treetops, moonlight filtering through branches like skeletal fingers. He whispered to himself, more question than statement. "Who's calling? And how long have they been waiting for us in the dark?" The night air pressed heavy as Sheriff Caleb Monroe stood at the edge of the tree line, the faint glow of patrol lights flickering behind him like distant fireflies. His eyes traced the dark ribbon of County Road 18, searching for the unmarked van that had vanished into the night. The woman he'd rescued sat in the front seat of a squad car, wrapped in a blanket, eyes glassy with trauma. Monroe's hand tightened on the radio, but he held back, wary of provoking the unseen adversary any further. He surveyed the clearing where the van had appeared and slipped away, noting scuffed grass and tire tracks pressed into the soft earth. Officers in rain slickers fanned out, flashlights sweeping the tree line, but Monroe could feel the eyes beyond the beams, something watching, waiting. He knelt by the tracks, pressing a gloved finger into the mud. The van's tread pattern was unusual. Asymmetrical lugs, spaced irregularly, as if someone had custom-built its tires for silence. He photographed the track widths and spacing, committing every irregularity to memory. Above, the treetops stirred, and a soft rustle reached his ears. A slow, deliberate movement, like someone pacing just beyond the beam of his flashlight. Monroe straightened, gun drawn, and moved off the road into the woods, boots sinking in the wet duff. He followed a broken branch snapping under his weight until he came upon a small clearing dominated by an overturned rowboat half buried in mud. Its hull was scored with deep gouges, as though dragged violently over stones or metal. The interior was coated in a fine layer of ash and grit that clung to the seams. Monroe bent, shining his light inside. There, smudged across the hull, were dozens of tiny handprints, each pressed into the ash like a child's desperate plea for help. He felt the woman's presence behind him. "Sheriff," she whispered, her voice taut, "you shouldn't be alone." He ignored her plea, focusing on the handprints. He traced one with his flashlight. The print was much smaller than a typical child's, with elongated fingers. It didn't match Marcus Lang or any other missing person he knew. He snapped pictures. Then he noticed a single shoe, mud-caked and worn, half hidden under the bough. He knelt and tugged it free. A small moccasin, fringed at the ankle, too small even for the school-age girl he'd rescued. He lifted it by the toe. Inside, pressed flat against the sole, was a single word carved into the leather, faint but legible. "Stay." His heart throbbed. Stay. A command? A warning or a confession? He glanced back at the patrol car's lights. The other deputies were spread too far apart to see this clearing. He stuffed the moccasin into an evidence bag and turned toward the tree line. The woods beyond were darker here, the canopy closing overhead in a dense lattice. He advanced, flashlight dancing across trunks. The hush was complete. No wind, no insect chirp. Nothing but his own footsteps. Suddenly, the beam caught something pinned to a stub of bark. A laminated photograph clipped to the tree with a rusted safety pin. Monroe flipped it over. On the back was scrawled the name Maribel and a date. May 3rd, 2018. He shivered. That name corresponded to a 6-year-old girl from a case he'd worked 2 years prior, found unharmed in a neighbor's basement after vanishing for 3 nights. She'd spoken only one thing after her rescue: "He counts us all." He recalled that case. No evidence of foul play, no suspect ever charged, just Maribel's dazed eyes and that cryptic phrase. Now her photograph hung here, in this forgotten wood, decades after her disappearance. His breath caught. He shoved the photo into his pocket. A sharp snap echoed behind him. He pivoted, gun leveled, scanning the gloom. Where the trees framed a small clearing, he saw a dark shape slip between trunks. He lunged forward, flashlight trembling, and caught the tail of what looked like a child's coat, a fringe of fabric, vanishing around a moss-covered boulder. He chased after it, boots sloshing through shallow puddles, mind racing with every unsolved disappearance in the county. Rounding the boulder, he found nothing. Only the muted roar of distant engines, unsettled by the wooded hill. He pounded the boulder's surface, adrenaline coursing. A hollow thunk answered. The rock was hollow, a carved-out chamber inside. He knelt, shining his light along the seam where rock met rock. A metal hatch peeked through. Monroe pried at it with his gloved fingers until it granted with a reluctant click. He lifted the hatch to reveal a ladder descending into a shaft beyond, the interior slick with condensation and decay. He hesitated, recalling the church's hidden passages and the cavern beneath it, places designed to trap hope and silence screams. He glanced at the woman's terrified face reflected in his truck's side mirror. She must be safe from this. Monroe lowered the beam down the shaft. At the bottom, he could see the flicker of light and movement. Someone was down there pacing. He radioed Carrick. "Chief, I'm going below. Keep an eye on the perimeter." Carrick's voice crackled back, taut with concern. "Copy that, but be careful." Monroe clicked off and descended, each rung groaning under his weight. At the bottom, he found a narrow tunnel carved into bedrock, its walls stained dark, dripping water. The smell was of oil and rot. His light revealed scrawled symbols, circles intersected with crosses, etched into every surface. Beneath the markings lay another photograph. Maribel again, but older, eyes hollow, cheeks sunken, holding the same moccasin he'd bagged as evidence. Underneath, a date, June 10th, 2025. Tonight's date. Monroe's breath faltered. He backed up, slipping on wet stone. The beam shook and caught something moving at the far end of the tunnel. A small figure in silhouette. It stood perfectly still, arms at its sides, head tilted. Monroe called out, voice echoing, "Maribel?" The figure didn't move. He stepped closer. The beam washed across the figure's face, and he stumbled back, heart lurching. It wasn't Maribel, it was Lawson. His eyes were wild, pale in the flashlight's glare, skin ghostly. He wore the same battered raincoat, but beneath it his uniform was unbuttoned, revealing the claws of bruises on his ribs. CCBY, Monroe thought, marking him as one of the missing. Lawson's lips curved into a crazed smile. "You counted them all, Caleb. Now count yourself in." Monroe lifted his gun. "Lawson, get down here." But Lawson shook his head, stepping backward. Behind him, Maribel's moccasin lay on the ground, and in the center of a chalked circle drawn on the floor were symbols identical to those in the cavern. They circle back. Lawson raised a pocket knife, its blade catching light. "Stay," he whispered, echoing the moccasin's message. Then he vanished in a flicker, as though he dematerialized into the darkness. Monroe lunged forward, splashing through puddles, but hit only empty tunnel. He scanned frantically, no signs of movement, only his own ragged breathing. He reached for the chalk circle and found fresh blood smeared in a spiral pattern. Below it, etched into the stone, was a single word: alone. His radio crackled with Carrick's voice. "Sheriff? You there? We've got... I'm not sure what just happened, but units are reporting the same symbols and missing person photos up and down County Road 18. We're setting up lockdown." Monroe pressed the handset to his ear. I'm in an underground shaft. Lawson showed up. He knew about the symbol circle. He said stay, and then..." He choked off, absorbing the isolation. He was alone, deep beneath the woods, cut off from backup with only shadows for company. He exhaled and gathered himself. He clipped the mooring of his flashlight to his belt and pocketed the radio. His focus narrowed. Find Lawson. Find answers. Rescue any survivors. He pressed deeper into the tunnel, flashlight beam ahead slicing through the ink. Every drip of water overhead counted off seconds in his mind. Each one closer to losing his own grip on time, on reality. At the tunnel's end, a heavy steel door loomed, marked only with peeling paint that spelled out chapel in faded letters. Monroe's hand closed around the cold handle. He paused, heart pounding, every fiber screaming. He pressed his ear to the door and heard something soft, like whispers in the dark, voices too faint to make out. His gloved hand gripped the handle and he pulled it open. Beyond was a cylindrical chamber, walls lined with wooden coffins standing upright, their lids nailed shut. The only light came from a solitary bulb hanging overhead, swinging gently, casting the coffins in shifting shadows. Monroe's flashlight illuminated names carved into the lids: Deputy Lawson, Marcus Lang, Maribel Hayes, and dozens more. Each inscription was followed by a date. Disappearance dates, excavation dates, death dates. The last coffin bore Monroe's name, Caleb Monroe, with tomorrow's date scrawled underneath. Monroe froze, blood pounding in his ears. He flicked his beam over the last coffin. The lid was loose, nails half pried. He swallowed hard, detecting a faint, sour smell leaking through the cracks. The overhead bulb sputtered, then went out, leaving him in half-light, coffin lids looming around him like silent judges. Sheriff Monroe stood frozen in the coffin chamber's half-light, the metallic echo of the bulb's sputter fading into a suffocating hush. Around him, the upright coffins pressed in like a silent jury, patiently awaiting judgment. He could feel the cold dampness of the concrete floor seeping through his boots, an unwelcome reminder that his world had inverted. Now, the living peered in on the dead. His pulse thundered in his temples, dissonant against the shrine of disappeared lives stitched together by nightmares. He held his flashlight up, its narrow beam dancing across each coffin's lid. The names were carved with precision: Deputy Lawson, Marcus Lang, Maribel Hayes, and a dozen others he'd never heard of, each accompanied by 2 dates, one marking their vanishing, the other marking their discovery, or presumed end. Some lids bore notations in a second hand, smaller and slanted. Day 1, Day 42, Day 365. Next to Lawson's coffin, someone had scrawled in hurried scrawl, "Last one tonight." Monroe's breath hitched. He realized the date on his own coffin, tomorrow's date, was paired with Day 730, implying 2 years of this morbid ritual, and that tonight was the culmination. He swallowed, forcing motion into limbs that trembled involuntarily. The whispered, "Caleb, help me," had come from a coffin to his left, the one marked Deputy Carrick, his own second in command, and dated 6 months ago. Monroe stepped forward, each boot print a defiance of fear carved into the wet stone. He crouched by Carrick's coffin, flashlight illuminating a half-lifted lid. His gloved hand reached out, nails grazing the cracked varnish, and he shoved the lid further open. Inside lay folded clothes, Carrick's uniform shirt, pressed and immaculate, a pair of cuffed hands welded to the fabric in bronze, as if frozen in a perpetual salute. There was no sign of a body. Monroe recoiled, heart twisting. Carrick hadn't vanished 6 months ago. He'd been here, alive. A low groan sounded behind him. He spun, and the coffin seemed to shudder, as if rattled by some tremor deep beneath the chamber's floor. The overhead bulb flared, then died, plunging the room into inky darkness. Monroe's flashlight was his only bulwark against oblivion. He caught himself swearing aloud, an uncharacteristic admission of terror, before clamping his jaw and pushing the button. The beam bobbed across the chamber, revealing movement at its fringe, the silhouettes of coffins shifting, as though someone, or something, moved between them. He steadied himself and advanced toward the center of the room, following the sound of a muffled whimper. It led him to his own coffin, the lid tipped open on one side. His flashlight illuminated scrapes along the edge, fresh gouges in the wood. Monroe crouched, peering inside. The coffin was empty save for a crumpled photograph. He plucked it out, careful not to disturb fingerprints. The image showed him and Deputy Lawson in a patrol car, a candid shot as Lawson laughed. 2 years ago, in the station parking lot. On the back, scrawled in the same red pen from the church, "A promise kept. A promise kept." Monroe's mind raced. Justice, protection, promises made to the community, promises he'd failed to uphold once Lawson disappeared, once the missing persons began stacking up. But this was something else, a pact between the hunter and the hunted. He pressed the photo to his heart, eyes scanning the coffin walls. One lid at the far end bore a symbol he'd seen only in the tunnel, the spiral intersected by a cross. Beneath it, in chalky white, "Remember me." He holstered his gun, voice low and rigid. "I remember." He strode toward that coffin, boots splashing in shallow water pooled at his ankles. Each step stirred ripples, shimmering ghost light across the lids. He paused before the marked coffin, feeling the pull of unresolved guilt. His vow to find Carrick, to recover Lawson, to save innocents like Maribel. Yet here, In this subterranean chapel of bodies and broken oaths, Monroe realized he had been both protector and prey. He reached out, fingertips brushing the cross's etched lines. The lid gave way with a groan, and he lifted it fully. Inside lay a recorder, similar to the box in the church sanctuary but weathered, its lens shattered, resting on a stained pillow. He pressed play. Static. Then a voice so faint he strained to hear, "I watched you become me. I learned your promises, your failures. I lived your silence." Monroe's breath caught. He twisted off the recorder, voice taut. "Who are you?" Only static echoed. Back. He dropped the device and it skittered across the water, sliding under the next coffin, Deputy Lawson's, where he heard the scrape of metal on concrete, and then silence. His flashlight beam shifted upward as above him the ceiling crackled. Dust and tiny pebbles rattled onto the coffin lids. A dark shape coasted overhead, like a bat in mid-flutter, then vanished. The bulb overhead flickered back to life, revealing the bowed form of the woman he'd rescued, no longer trembling but eerily still, standing at the chamber's edge. Her eyes were glassy, distant, and she held in her hand the tarnished sheriff's star Monroe had retrieved early in the night. She stepped forward, pinching its pin between thumb and forefinger, studying the engraved name. Monroe dropped to one knee, voice hoarse. "You." He swallowed as she lifted the star to her lips and kissed it. "He told me to return it," she whispered. "He wants you to have it back before tomorrow." Her stare bore into him with unsettling clarity, both sorrow and resolve. Monroe felt a jolt of recognition. She wasn't a victim any longer, but a messenger. A vessel for something he couldn't name. He reached for her, but she slipped past, feet silent on the wet floor, leaving the star in his outstretched palm. She moved to the far wall, where the coffins formed a half circle. There, a single steel door, rusted, locked, but radiating importance, stood apart from the others. Above it, etched into the concrete lintel, 3 names: Monroe, Lawson, Hayes. Beneath them, the date of tomorrow, and beside each, a space for a single heart-shaped emblem. The door's handle bore the same spiral cross symbol. Monroe rose, turning to her. "What's behind that door?" She pressed her lips together, head tilting. Then, without a word, she stepped aside, letting him pass. He approached and placed his hand on the handle. Its cold metal pressed into his palm, sending a thrill of dread up his arm. He inhaled, bracing for discovery, and pulled the door open. Beyond lay a single coffin, resting on a stone slab in the center of a circular chamber, the heart of this labyrinth. The coffin's lid was carved with no name, no dates, only the spiral cross symbol. Monroe swallowed, stepping forward. He shone his flashlight under the lid and found not a body, but a mirror polished so perfectly it reflected his own face in the dim light. Monroe stared into his own eyes. Tired, haunted, and yet alive. The reflection shifted. Behind him, in the mirror's surface, stood Lawson, Carrick, Maribel. Ghostly figures gathered around, closing in. Monroe spun, but the chamber was empty. Only the coffin held the mirror. He gulped, turning back to see his reflection smile. A slow, unnatural curve of lips that he did not feel. He staggered back as the mirror's surface rippled, and a voice, his own yet alien, whispered, "Stay with us." The woman's silhouette flickered at his side. She placed a finger over her lips, then turned and walked back into the coffin chamber beyond, her footsteps silent. Monroe stared after her, heart pounding. The door to the spiral corridor was gone. Only polished stone remained. He was trapped between life and death, between promise and betrayal, with tomorrow's date etched above him like a countdown. He raised his flashlight to the mirror one last time. His reflection's lips curled into a knowing grin. Monroe pressed his palm to the glass, and the mirror fractured. Cracks spiderwebbing across its surface, distorting his face into a mask of fear. He stumbled back, breathing hard. Somewhere behind him, the hush broke. The slow drip of water, the soft thud of a coffin lid closing, a distant click of locks re-engaging. The woman was gone. Sheriff Caleb Monroe turned to face the steel door once more. The coffin with no name lay open at his feet. The twisted spiral cross glowed faintly on its edge, beckoning. He reached out, trembling, to step inside. And in the mirror's shards around him, he heard his own voice ask, "Will you stay?" I'm 3 hours into my shift and already wondering if I'll ever sleep again. The windshield wipers squeak in protest as rain slides over the glass, tracing dark rivers under the cruiser's dome light. The radio crackles once more, a sharp burst of static that might have been words if the wiring weren't shot. I flip the knob, but there's nothing. Dead. Just like the feed store I passed 20 minutes ago. Miller's feed, boarded up, the lock mangled as if someone needed the place in a hurry. The old man who ran it, Jacob Miller, died in April. Heart attack. I found him behind the counter, coffee gone cold, a half-eaten donut by his side. This town buries its dead, closes the shutters, then moves on. But secrets don't stay buried. I ease the patrol car down Main Street. Streetlights flicker in half-hearted protest, illuminating empty sidewalks and shuttered windows. Pine Hollow's storefronts look like gravestones carved in neon. Horizon Hardware, Dawson's Pharmacy, Luella's Diner. No one's out tonight. Doesn't make the night feel any safer. In fact, the emptiness presses in, walls without corners, shadows right at the edge of vision. My phone sits silent in the cup holder. No messages, no missed calls, just the echo of my own breath. By the time I reach County Road 14, the rain has thickened, each drop a nail tapping on metal. Mist hangs in the trees. I pause at the fork. Left leads toward the old quarry road, right toward the cornfields that stretch for miles. I take the right. There's a reason I know those fields better than most folks. Back in '97, a high school kid vanished there, Alexis Green. Went in for a dare at midnight, never came out. We combed those rows for days, found nothing. No body, no sign. Only tire tracks weaving through the stalks, ending abruptly in a patch of wild daisies. That case never closed. We just put it on the shelf marked cold. But I never stopped thinking about Alexis, or what, or who, was out there moving among the plants. I switch on the dome light, marking the edge of the gravel road. My boots crunch as I climb out, hood up, flashlight in hand. The rain is light enough to let the world breathe. The stalks tower overhead, dense, oppressive, each leaf a whisper in the darkness. I follow the tire ruts. They shine black in the beam. They lead to the tunnel hatch. Freshly cut steel plate, lid pried open by brute force. I know exactly whose handiwork that is. There's only been one big theft in Pine Hollow in the last 10 years. The removal of an old storm shelter built under Miller's feed. They said someone stole the generator, but no one ever believed it. Turned out they were burying something, hiding someone. No record of what. My light slices into the shaft. Rotten wood braces sag under fresh sawdust. I lean in, ears straining. Drip, drip, drip. Echoing feet above, somewhere beyond the hatch. I climb down, each rung slick with moisture. At the bottom, the beam falls on a room carved from limestone. Rough walls hewn by hand. Concrete floor stained dark. A single fluorescent bulb overhead flickers, greets me with a sputter of yellow before burning steady. The air smells of damp soil, mildew, and something coppery, like blood. A metal table stands in the center. Instruments I've only seen on CSI, stainless steel trays, scalpels, syringes half filled with cloudy fluid. On the table lies a worn leather jacket, stained with something darker than mud. I kneel, feeling the rush of adrenaline. Beneath the jacket, a girl's arm, pale, slender, still. I check for a pulse, nothing. Then a soft cough. Hot breath fogs the beam, my heart hammers. I whip around. She's crouched behind an overturned crate, eyes huge, wild, clothes torn, screams caught in her throat. I recognize her from the missing person flyers. Marissa Holloway, 19, vanished 3 nights ago after her shift at Dawson's Pharmacy. I ease my gun from the holster, light trembling. Marissa, it's Sheriff Reyes. My voice comes out rough, brittle. She flinches but doesn't bolt, doesn't run. Just looks at me, confusion, terror, relief mixed together in a single glance. I crouch, offering my hand. I've got you. You're safe. She blinks, mouth opening and closing, as if testing the words. She scrambles out, dragging herself away from the table. She stumbles. I catch her arm. Her skin is ice under my glove. I half walk, half drag her toward the ladder. The bulb above flickers, and for a heartbeat the room goes pitch black. In that blink of absence I hear it, metal scraping against concrete. I spin, flashlight beam dancing across the walls. Nothing there, but the table has shifted, one syringe gone. I growl into the headset. Dispatch, need backup at County Road 14. Found the missing girl, possible suspect inside. Over. No answer, just static. I check my watch. 3:04 a.m. The second hand ticks loud, a metronome counting down to something. I hoist Marissa into my arms. She clings to me, silent sobs shaking her frame. We climb out. The hatch slams behind us. I lock it, slide the bolt home, and guide her to the cruiser. Engine roars. Rain lashes the hood. I pull onto the road, tires hissing on wet gravel. In the rearview mirror, I see the hatch lid shudder. As we disappear into the night, a single silhouette steps from the shadows. Tall, hooded, motionless. In its hand glints a polished horseshoe, the same one I found by the feed store. The rain washes over it, but it shines bright under the lamplight. I speed away. Marissa presses her forehead against the window, eyes wide. I flick on the dome light. Her sobs stop. She whispers, "He's still down there, isn't he?" I don't answer. I glance ahead. The cornfields recede into darkness. The radio crackles once more. A faint beep, then silence. I park under the wavering glow of the single street lamp outside Dawson's Pharmacy, engine idling. Rain still drumming a steady tattoo on the roof. Marissa's breathing is ragged. Beside me, each inhale a tremor against the wet leather seat. I flip off the dome light and reach for my radio one more time. 3 tries, nothing but static. My finger hovers over the button, hesitation twisting in my gut. I don't want to leave her alone in this car, but staying means walking back into that tunnel, unarmed and alone. So I clamp my jaw, switching off the ignition, and turn toward the pharmacy's rear exit. The back door stands unlocked, a fluke or another trap. I push it open, flashlight first, training the beam on overturned crates of overstock and dusty boxes stamped cough syrup and antibiotic ointment. The fluorescent bulbs overhead are dead, leaving me in complete darkness except for my own light. The beam dances across the linoleum floor, glinting off a discarded prescription slip. I lean down, Marissa's name, date stamped 3 nights ago, the R-Hex for insomnia medication. Her handwriting neat. She wasn't just a clerk, she was a patient to someone, maybe herself. Footsteps crack against the tile, mine echoing in the cavernous room. I follow the narrow corridor past empty exam rooms and a small waiting area. A calendar on the wall sways, pages torn out. March, April, May, until the last page reads June, date unmarked, blank, except for a single X scrawled on the 12th. The X pulses in my flashlight's circle like a heartbeat. I press my palm flat against the cool laminate and feel the rough indentations of pen nib. 3 months ago. What happened here on that specific day? No files, no notes, just that X, haunting like a cursed mark. I reach the break room, door ajar, and push in. A metal folding chair lies on its side, a coffee mug shattered across the linoleum. I step over the shards, boots slapping damp tiles. On the bulletin board, a notice, clipped by a rusty thumbtack, reads, "Staff meeting canceled. Security concerns. Proceed with caution. No date, no sign-off." Caution for what? Who put it up? My heart thunders. Whoever targeted Marisa knew where she worked. Whoever left that slip knew which meds she took. This goes deeper than a random abduction. A sudden creak makes me spin. The break room door bangs behind me, slow and deliberate. I click my tongue, edging back. The beam catches something on the floor. A single horseshoe, polished, identical to the one I stashed above my desk. Cold dread coils around my spine. I bite out a curse and scoop it up, tucking it into my coat pocket. Heart hammering, I realize someone is playing with me. They want me to know they were here, in my home, in my shift, in my mind. I step back into the corridor. The back door slams somewhere to the front of the building, impacted by wind or by someone's hand. I freeze. The hallway stretches into pitch black gloom. Ahead, the emergency exit sign pulses its weak green. I switch off the flashlight and listen. My boots scrape against tile. Nothing. The wind howls outside, but I swear I hear a low moan, like Marisa's whisper trapped in the shadows. I flick the light back on and sweep the beam along the walls. At the far end, I spot a narrow stairwell leading down. There's no sign on the door, no map shows it. But I recognize the layout. This staircase leads to the pharmacy's basement storage, a series of interconnected lockers and supply rooms, then eventually into the seam beneath the feed store. Exactly the path they used to slip bodies in and out. The whole complex is tied together underground. The feed store on one corner of town, Dawson's in the middle, hidden shafts running beneath both. How long have they used these passages? How many victims went missing without me ever knowing? I grip the railing and descend. Concrete walls close in. My flashlight beam slashes left and right. Boxes marked dry goods, bulk pills, cold packs. A rusty shopping cart lies abandoned, contents spilled, gauze, bandages, vials with labels scratched off. This is supply storage. But further down, the walls are slick with moisture, and the smell shifts, from mildew to rot. I pause at the junction where the corridor forks. The left tunnel concrete-lined, the right carved raw, rock faces still jagged. It's the same split I saw beneath the feed store. Left goes to Miller's, right goes here to Dawson's. I hesitate, uncertain which path the captor took after abducting Marisa. A soft whistle, too low to be human, echoes from the right branch. I spin, light grazing the rock. There, carved into the stone, faint etched letters read, "They watch." No date, no signature, just that taunting phrase. My pulse spikes. They watch. Who watches? And why carve it here in a child's scrawl or an adult's mocking hand? I swallow, stroking my chin. My service weapon is empty in the chamber. I can't risk another misfire. I turn back to the fork. "Marissa," I hiss into the darkness. No answer, only drip, drip, drip of water. I step toward the right. The floor tilts downward. The rock walls close in, damp, spots glimmering under my light. I notice fresh footprints, bare feet, small, too small for Marissa's size, and deeper imprints from work boots size 10. The same pattern I saw by the horseshoe. The smaller prints lead away, then circle back toward the chamber beneath Miller's. I grit my teeth. They've been taunting me, leading me on a chase through the bowels of Pine Hollow. And now, Marissa could be anywhere down these tunnels, trapped in a chamber I haven't discovered. I follow the prints, each step stirring stale air thick with dread. The tunnel opens into a half-lit cavern. My light catches rusted pipes overhead, and a pool of water reflecting the bulb's flicker. In the center, a low dais of concrete, stained brown. No table this time, just a heap of clothes and discarded shoes crying out in the beam. I approach carefully, boots echoing. On top of the pile lies Marissa's other shoe, the one missing when I found her. It's soaked, laces frayed, as if she pulled it off herself. I kneel, heart slamming. Just behind the pile, embedded in the concrete wall, a cluster of photographs pinned by nails. Local children and teens, school photos, candid shots, names scrawled beneath. Alexis, Marissa, Danny, Claire. 4 names, 4 faces, all missing. Dates handwritten in a spidery scrawl. August 12th, 1997, June 4th, 2002. May 19th, 2023, June 7th, 2025. The last date is today, June 7th, 2025, 2 days ago. Marissa's abduction is the latest in a decades-long pattern. My jaw goes dry. A low rumble rolls through the cavern, like distant thunder but coming from underground. The bulb overhead sputters. The horseshoe in my coat pocket welds itself into my palm. I tuck it under my shirt, breathing fast. Marissa's breath hisses through my earpiece. She's still on the line, barely audible. Stay away. Suddenly, the light snaps off. Darkness devours everything. My breathing roars in my ears. I reach for my flashlight. It's dead. I fumble for my phone's light, 50% battery. Blessed, but the beam is weak. In its feeble glow, I see him, the hooded figure, just at the edge of my vision, standing at the tunnel's mouth. Not moving, just watching. I swallow hard, voice a rasp. "Marissa, hold on." I step back, heart hammering, as the tunnel falls silent save for a faint drip. Nothing, no hum of pumps, no echo of footsteps. Then, from the darkness beyond him, a single, sharp, metallic click, like a latch unlocking somewhere deep in the rock. The metallic click still reverberates in my ears as I fumble in the dark, phone light trembling in my hand. The hooded figure stands motionless at the mouth of the tunnel, silhouette stiff as a scarecrow. My heart slams against my ribs. I wipe sweat from my brow, even though I'm soaking wet from the rain earlier. Every nerve screams to run, but I can't leave Marissa behind. I force breath into my lungs. "Who are you?" I demand, voice echoing off wet stone. No answer. Just the steady drip of water somewhere deeper, and the low hum of the fluorescent ballast overhead struggling to stay alive. Behind the figure, the wall seems to shift, a faint outline tracing a seam in the rock. The click came from there, I realize. A hidden door cracking open, sliding on greasy rails carved centuries ago. My flashlight's feeble beam dances over that seam. I step closer, boots splashing in the shallow puddles. The door reveals itself as a narrow corridor, its entrance low, shoulders barely able to clear. Beyond, darkness thickens, colder than the rest of the tunnel. Wet footprints, size 10 again, lead into that new passage. I glance back toward the cavern. No Marisa, no clothes, no shoes, only the pile and the pinned photographs staring down like church candles in the gloom. I swallow and duck under the beam. The corridor's walls are slick, jagged stone sliding past my shoulders as I inch forward. My phone light reveals rusted pipework overhead, dripping condensation onto my head. Every droplet echoes in the narrow space. I feel for my service weapon, realizing with a jolt that I'd left it on the concrete dais back in the cavern. An empty holster and an empty chamber. That's my reward for rushing in alone. I grip the rough stone, guiding myself deeper. A stale breeze brushes past. Warm, almost human, carrying a whisper of something metallic, like blood or engine oil. My phone light flickers. Its battery drainage accelerates as I advance. I pause, listening. Faint scuffling. Too low to be boots, more like cloth dragging against rock. I shine the beam forward. A length of rope, coiled on a ledge halfway down the corridor. Rope's the color of old bone. I slide a finger under the coil. Fresh fibers, stiff with age. Whoever dropped it didn't just use these tunnels. They maintain them, store supplies. A soft tapping begins, slow and rhythmic, behind me. I whirl around. The entrance I just passed is gone. Rock face solid, no seam, no door. I stumble, heart in my throat. I scramble back, only to realize the narrow shaft has swallowed the doorway entirely, trapped. Panic grips me, but I slam my palm flat on the wall, forcing breath. There's only one way forward. I steel myself and move on. The tapping follows, shifting pace. Now an erratic staccato, like fingernails drumming on concrete. I sweep my light side to side. Nothing visible, but the sound comes from everywhere and nowhere. The corridor angles downward at a steep incline. I rest my free hand on the slick floor for balance. Water sloshing around my boots. The air grows colder. My breath plumes twice as heavy. Up ahead, I see a soft glow, red, pulsing, like an alarm light, casting the rock walls in a sickly hue. My phone light dims to near dead. I click off the beam, heart hammering, and let the red light guide me. I round a bend, and there it is. Another chamber, larger than the last, lit by that single red beacon. Low benches line the walls, carved directly into the stone. Between them, metal cages hatch against the far wall, roomy enough to hold a person on all fours. The doors are open, one lying ajar on the floor, hinge broken. The floor beneath is stained dark, dried blood seeping into cracks. My stomach twists. On one bench lies a notebook, a manila folder bound by wire. I step closer, squatting to pick it up. The red light flickers, casting everything in shifting shadows. I crack the cover. Inside, pages of neat handwriting detail, reagent concentrations, subject reactions, vital signs. Names: Alexis Green, Danny Peters, Claire Donovan, Marisa Holloway. Charts track dosages and timelines. On the last page, a date, June 5th, 2025, and a single word circled twice in red ink. Awakening. Beneath it, a scrawled question. Will she remember? A sudden hiss like a valve opening makes me jump, dropping the folder. Steam floods the chamber. A pipe overhead bursts, spraying scalding vapor into the air. I cough, eyes stinging, and stumble back. Through tears, I see movement at the cage doors. Shadows twisting inside the bars. My pulse rockets. Crouching behind a bench, I fumble for my phone. It's at 10%, maybe enough light. I turn it on and flick the beam toward the cages. Inside the nearest cell, something shifts. A silhouette slumped against the bars. I step closer, phone illuminating matted hair and gaunt features. It's Claire Donovan, missing since May 19th. Her eyes snap open, milky white, unfocused, contact lenses peeled off. She drags herself forward, pulling at the cage door. I yelp, she collapses, convulsing, and vomits dark fluid onto the concrete. I cover my mouth, bile rising. "Claire!" I shout. She moans, clutches her head, rocking. "They didn't finish." Her voice rasps like gravel. "You shouldn't be here, not safe." She droops, limbs going limp. I catch her before she falls fully. She smells of chemicals and rot. My fingers tremble as I cradle her. I realize she's gasping for breath, maybe alive, maybe not. A thunderous groan erupts from behind me. I whirl. The hooded figure stands on the threshold, light framing his shape in red. He holds something long and thin in one hand. A syringe, its plunger drawn back, fluid dark as tar. He doesn't move closer. The beam from my phone wavers as my hand shakes. "You weren't meant to see this," he whispers, voice low, mechanical, reverberating off the walls. "But now you know." He lifts the syringe. Claire's body twitches. She looks up at him, a spark of recognition. Fear? Hope? It vanishes. The man steps forward, robotically precise. I shout, stepping between them, heart slamming. "Don't touch her." He stops. For a second, I think he'll hesitate. He loosens his grip. But that flicker ends. He raises the syringe. I lunge. We grapple for the barrel. My hand smashes into metal. Sparks fly as the syringe's needle grazes my wrist. Pain sears. I twist hard, breaking his hold. The syringe falls, clattering across the floor. He grabs me by the throat, pressing me against the bench. My vision tunnels. His hood shifts, revealing a thin smile beneath. Eyes cold slits. "You should have left her alone," he hisses. My grip loosens. Panic flares. I kick out, connect with his knee. He stumbles. I shove Claire toward the open door of her cage, then roundhouse kick at the man's stomach. He doubles over. I backpedal, heart rattling, and scoop Claire into my arms. Her eyes flutter as I race for the tunnel entrance, the one behind me that I never noticed opening. It's gone again. Solid rock. I skid to a halt. My phone dies. Darkness swallows us. I stumble forward, blindly, dragging Claire. The hissing gas still floods. My throat tightens. I can't see, can't breathe. A hand clamps over my mouth. The figure's voice whispers in my ear, "Don't struggle." He tightens his grip. My head slams against stone, stars exploding behind my eyes. I come to gasping, the world spinning like a carnival ride gone wrong. My wrists burn where the man jabbed me. My head throbs with each heartbeat. I'm lying on cold concrete, coarse and damp beneath my cheek. Claire's gone. The cage door I shoved her into is empty, her sobs replaced by nothing but hollow silence. I force myself up, vision blurred, every breath a battle. My phone is dead, my flashlight long since flickered out. The red beacon overhead pulses like a heartbeat in the gloom. I press trembling fingers to my temple, taste copper, blood, worry. The chamber around me is silent except for distant dripping. My eyes adjust to the dim glow. The metal cages stand open, a ring of empty cells around a single sturdy door set into the far wall. Reinforced steel with no handle, just a small barred window at head height. Beyond it, I see nothing but darkness. The bench where I sat is scuffed and smeared. The notebook gone, the dried blood wiped or washed away. Who cleared this chamber? Whoever brought Claire here didn't expect anyone else to see it. I dig my fingers into the concrete, feeling for chips or seams. Nothing, just unyielding rock. A soft, irregular humming drifts through the air, like an engine idling far above. I follow the sound, mind still foggy. It leads me to a narrow slit in the wall beside the steel door. A ventilation grate about 2 feet off the ground, bars still in place. I crouch, slipping my hand inside. Fingers touch something cool, a folded scrap of paper wedged in the duct. I pull it free. It's a Polaroid, an overhead shot of the feed store parking lot at midnight. A single car parked under the lamp. I recognize my cruiser, its roof linebackered by rain, doors closed. But there's a figure, tiny as a shadow, slipping around the rear, hand outstretched toward the trunk. The photo is date-stamped a week ago. Someone's been watching my every move, recording me. I shove the picture into my coat pocket. My pulse spikes. If they want me to know they're watching, they're playing a deeper game. I need to find Claire. I need to find Marisa. I need to get out. And I still don't have my gun. I pat my pockets, wallet, keys, horseshoe. That damn horseshoe, heavy in my pocket like a millstone. I yank it out and heft it. At least it's something solid. Ready or not, I head for the steel door. My shoulder slams into it, hard. The metal doesn't give. I scope the perimeter. A small table bolted to the wall, and on it, a keypad with a blinking green light. No instructions, no numbers missing. Just 10 unreadable digits, worn smooth. Whoever used this keypad did it so often they polished the keys with their fingertips. I press the corner digit, 1. It lights up red and drips a low electronic thrum. I pull back. I have no code. I circle the door, testing hinges, listening. Beyond the window, blackness. No movement. Just the distant hum and the thrum of my pulse. I lean down and press my ear to the cold metal. I think I hear whispering, but is it my own imagination? I cup my hand against the door, silently pressing my palm flat against the steel. The hum warps into a stutter, then a voice, barely audible, electronic. QRST? It cuts out. I stand, heart hammering. They're taunting me through this door, reciting a code I don't know. I turn away, scanning the chamber again. The cages, the benches, they're all aligned toward the door, as if directing attention. On the floor beneath the grate where I found the photo, I notice fresh scuff marks. Shoes slid across the concrete. Not boots, sneakers, size 9. Not mine. The footprints head toward the corner where I came to. I follow them, torching the damp earth with my palm. They end at a trapdoor set flush in the floor, its edges dark with grime. I never noticed it before. The hatch is secured by a latch. I grip the horseshoe and wedge it under the lip, prying. It gives with a sickening grunt. Below is a shaft of narrow stairs, spiraling down into deeper black. My breath catches. There's no guarantee this leads out. Could be another trap. But the steel door is a dead end without a code. I drop the hatch and slip inside, the stairs slick with moisture. I cling to the railing, descending. The only sound my own breathing and the click-clack of wet concrete under leather. The shaft dumps me into another corridor. Low ceiling, rough-cut limestone, dripping water pooling at my feet. I shine the horseshoe's edge toward the wall. It casts no light, of course, but my eyes adjust. A narrow tunnel stretches to the left and right. I turned right, drawn by a faint orange glow ahead, like the ember of a dying fire. I advance with head down. When I crest the curve, I find a makeshift nursery. A small room, carved into the rock, walls scored with childish drawings in white chalk. Stick figures holding hands, houses with pitched roofs, suns smiling. Beneath each drawing, names, Alexis, Danny, Claire, and one lonely name scratched in fresh chalk. Marisa. Beneath Marissa's name, someone scrawled a question. Do you remember them? The chalk is dry but crisp. I swallow. Against the far wall, a single wooden crib sits, aged and splintered, not matching the rest of the dungeon industrial aesthetic. The mattress inside is stained whipped cream white, wedged with twigs and dead leaves. On it lies a teddy bear, pink, matted, its left eye missing. I lift it, dust motes swirling in the amber glow. It smells of earth and stale milk. Someone tucked a Polaroid on its chest, an image of the 4 missing children, clasped hands in a circle, heads bowed. The date scrawl on the back reads August 13th, 1997. My throat goes dry. The pattern spans decades. The nursery door clicks behind me. I whirl, horseshoe raised like a club, but the corridor is empty. The orange glow pulses ahead, beckoning. I drop the teddy bear and move toward it, heartbeat pounding. Each step echoes the drip of water from unseen cracks. Up ahead, the tunnel widens into a rough chamber lit by a single lantern, swinging from a chain overhead. Beneath it, a large wooden table carved from a tree trunk stands, its surface marred with gouges and burns. On it lie dozens of chalk fragments, broken crayons, and a scattering of children's toys, an upside-down music box, a marionette with tangled strings, a wind-up duck missing its beak. I step closer, chest tight. Each toy holds a memory of innocence lost. Each chalk fragment feels like a piece of a shattered childhood. The lantern sways, casting moving shadows that twist into grinning faces on the walls. I realize with cold clarity, someone is recreating childhood here, forcing the missing to remember, or perhaps punishing them for what they once were. The unanswered question from the crib echoes in my mind. Do you remember them? Behind me, a soft, hollow click. I spin, horseshoe raised. The hatch above clatters shut, trapping me in the room. The lantern's chain rattles, and the light stretches longer, casting monstrous shapes across the walls. A faint giggle drifts from somewhere behind me, childlike and broken. My throat seizes. Sheriff Reyes, a voice whispers, right next to my ear, breath cold on my neck. I freeze, frame locked. The giggle curls through the air like a blade, sharp, unexpected, and unmistakably childlike. My skin prickles. I whirl, horseshoe raised, heart hammering loud enough to drown out the drip of water. The lantern's amber glow swings, elongating my shadow into a grotesque silhouette. But there's no one there, just the rough stone walls, the carved table, the scattered toys staring up at me with plastic eyes. I force my breath steady, reminding myself, no ghosts, no apparitions, only humans. Someone else down here, hiding in the dark, using recordings or speakers to terrify me. I reached for the teddy bear I dropped, scanning for wires or chips. Under the pink fur, I find a small black rectangle, an electronic playback device taped to its chest, speaker mesh on one side. I pluck it free and hold it close. The device is old, battered, but clearly looping sound files. I flick a switch, silence. Flick again, it crackles to life. The same giggle, distorted, then cut off. I crush it in my fist until the circuit board snaps, battery rattling inside. Silence, true silence, falls heavy. No footsteps, no whispers, only the echo of my pulse. I tuck the broken board into my coat pocket. The crib, the dolls, the chalk drawings, they're all staged, meant to disorient me. But why children? What are they trying to prove? A note pinned to the table catches my eye, half hidden under a wooden block. A ledger of names and dates, scratched in pencil on lined notebook paper. The page lists 20 entries. Only 6 names filled in, dates spanning decades. 4 blank lines at the bottom, as if waiting for more. My jaw clenches. They've been keeping meticulous records. How many bodies lie uncounted out in those tunnels? How many missing went straight from our world into this one? A soft shudder runs through the table, as if someone brushed past it. I spin toward the tunnel mouth. Darkness yawns, untouched by lantern light. My hand tightens on the horseshoe. The walls seem to pulse in the lantern circle, breathing. I step backward, boots skidding on a stray marble. My heel strikes something round and cold. Leaning down, I pick up a smooth stone, painted white with a single black eye. A game marker like you'd find in a board game, but chipped and worn. On its face, someone has written in small, neat print, "Watch." My pulse rattles. I cuff my forehead with a palm. Watch what? The walls press in, I feel exposed. I scan the chamber walls again. Near the far corner, half obscured by shadow, I notice a crack. Thin, straight, unnatural. It extends from floor to ceiling, just a hairline fracture. I crouch and touch it. Loose dust trickles down. I follow it upward, tracing a path along the stone. At the top, the crack branches into a rectangular outline, a hidden panel. I push at the lower edge. The stone shifts inward with a grinding protest. My breath catches. Behind the panel is a shallow niche filled with old VHS tapes, dozens of black plastic cassettes, labels scrawled in the same neat pencil: Green, Lane, Donovan, Holloway, and others I don't recognize. I fish one out. Peters, D, 999. I flick open the small cassette door and pop it into my pocket. If I get out of here, I need to review these. Evidence of every crime. Faces recorded, lives stolen. The panel grinds shut behind me. I stand, heart pounding. The chamber suddenly feels smaller. Dust swirls in the lantern's glow. I realize the forge smell, like smoldering metal, that I ignored earlier has grown stronger. Something's burning somewhere deeper, and the smoke pangs my throat. I press a sleeve to my mouth. Guilt tugs at me. I left Claire unconscious back in the red-lit cage room. I have to go back. But how? Retracing these winding tunnels without light or a map is suicide. A shimmering movement catches my eye. A thin ribbon of smoke curling from a crack in the ceiling, directly above the table. I look up. Tiny embers glow in the rock, as if a fuse is lit somewhere beyond my reach. The smoke trails away, leading down a narrow side passage I haven't explored. I step toward it, breath hitching. That passage could be an exit or the source of the fire. Either way, I can't ignore it. I pocket the ledger and the VHS tape and pivot toward the smoke. The tunnel narrows as I follow the trail. Ash drifts from above, coating my shoulders. The floor here is uneven, scattered with chunks of rock and debris. My foot catches on a loose stone. I tumble forward, arms flailing. I land on my side, chest compressing, breath whooping out. Through blurred vision, I see, half buried in rubble, the corner of a rusted wheel, encrusted with barnacles of mineral deposits. An archaeological find? No, a handcart track rolling into the dark, rails embedded in the floor. Whoever built this place shoveled supplies in on carts and rolled them down these rails. My mind races. The feed store tunnels, the pharmacy basement, now this. An entire network carved by someone with time, resources, and a singular obsession. A low roar rises from ahead, not thunder, but the steady growl of heavy machinery. The rails incline slightly. I push myself to my feet, heart hammering. My boots land on an old switch, pressed down, unlatching something. With a clunk, machinery groans alive. Ahead, a section of wall slides away on rails, revealing a massive chamber. A subterranean workshop lit by hanging industrial lamps. Conveyor belts, vats of bubbling liquid, metal tables strewn with tools. Enough capacity here to process dozens of victims at a time. A factory of horror, hidden beneath Pine Hollow. My blood runs cold. From the far end of the workshop comes a single muffled voice. Calm, soft, but tinged with amusement. "They're almost ready," it says. I crouch behind a table, heart hammering. I can't make out who speaks, but I recognize the timbre, a woman's voice, cultured, almost gentle. My mind snaps back to Doctor Langley's broken description: 3 men and a woman, surgical masks talking about national security and sacrifices. This must be her, one of the pioneers. I swallow hard. If I stay, I'll find Claire, Marisa, the others, but I'll walk straight into their lair, unarmed and alone. I reach for my phone, dead. I pat my pockets. Tape, ledger, horseshoe, photo of my own cruiser under the feed store lamp. I need backup, but the nearest deputies are miles away, oblivious. The radio might pick up something here. I press the transmit button, static. Nothing but hiss. A clang echoes across the workshop, metal on metal. My head whips toward the sound. A row of cages, identical to those I saw before, rests on a conveyor belt. The cages are all empty, except one. Inside it, legs bound, torso slumped. The shape is too small to be an adult. I tense, raising the horseshoe. Suddenly, the conveyor jolts, jerking the cage forward toward a horrifying machine at the end of the track. A device of blades and gears, meant to butcher, reshape, or erase. The bound figure jolts. I blink through the steam rising from vats. The lantern lights above flicker. The machine rumbles, gearing up. I lunge from behind the table, heart racing. My foot catches on debris. We both go down. The horseshoe slams against my skull as I crash to the floor. Stars blanket my vision. I try to rise, but the floor shudders as the cage inches closer to the machine's maw. The bound figure's muffled cries fill the chamber. Small, terrified sobs. Everything slows. The belt groans, gears clicking into place. The device's blades edge forward, glinting deadly. A single rail switch under my knee clicks, but I can't move. My head throbs. The last thing I hear before consciousness flickers again is the tortured sob of the trapped figure in the machine's hungry hum. My vision swims in red and orange glow as consciousness claws back. The machine's gears grind relentlessly. The bound figure convulses in the cage, sobs muffled against metal bars. I force breath. Into my lungs, every inhale a jagged shard of pain. My head throbs, each pulse echoing through the cavernous workshop. The air stinks of burning oil and chemicals. Sweat and blood mingle at my hairline. I push against the cold concrete floor, knuckles scraping as I struggle upright. The horseshoe slips from my fingers and clatters away, lost in the debris. I blink twice, focus sharpening enough to see. The conveyor belt inches forward, the cage's cache of terror moving step by step toward the machine's maw. I lunge, blur of motion, fueled by desperation. The world tilts as I slide beneath a steel table, lungs burning. Gears click. The cage shudders closer. I kick out at the control panel, an alcove of switches and levers mounted on the wall beside the conveyor. It's a mess of wires and labels. Feed, speed, engage. My fingertips brush the largest lever marked engage. I yank it down. Sparks erupt. The conveyor jolts backward, yanking the cage away from the blades with a screech of grinding metal. The sobs suspend in midair, hope flickering through the tortured cries. I exhale, shoulders trembling, eyes stinging. Heat washes over me. The forge smell intensifies as machinery groans in protest. Down the workshop's length, vats bubble with unknown fluids, smoke coiling from vents overhead. The pulsing roar of engines thrums in my bones. I search for the figure in the cage, a small body huddled in the corner, shoulders shaking. Drawing near, I see dark hair plastered to a pale face. The child's eyes flick open when I crouch. Recognition dawns. The boy from the photos, Danny Peters, missing since 1999, still alive, still trapped. His hollow stare finds me and he whispers a name. Sheriff? Relief floods his eyes, then confusion. I reach in through the bars, pressing my hand against his cold one. It's Reyes. I'm here to get you out. He nods once, weakly, tears carving tracks down his dusty cheeks. Come on, I murmur, sliding the cage door open. His legs tremble as he stands. His arms sling around my neck in a feeble hug. I steady him, breathing hard. The forge heat sears my back as I guide him away from the conveyor. Behind us, alarms begin to wail. High-pitched shrieks that hammer at my eardrums. I half carry Danny toward the nearest exit tunnel, the one I plunged through earlier. Emergency lights flicker on overhead in dull blues, but they only reach a few feet down the corridor. Beyond that, darkness. We move fast. My legs burn under Danny's weight, but adrenaline drives me forward. A roar of engines surges nearer this time. The ground trembles. I round a bend. The tunnel splits again. Left leads toward the nursery I passed, right toward the steel-barred door where Claire was held. Danny's breaths come in short gasps. Sheriff, they're coming, he rasps. I glance back. The machine's roar is joined by heavy footsteps and the slap of boots on concrete. The workshop doors burst open. 3 masked figures pour into the corridor behind us, lanterns bobbing in their hands. I recognize their surgical masks, the icons of pioneers. I push Danny toward the right tunnel, toward Claire, and sprint after. Danny stumbles, boots skidding. I catch him under the arms and jostle him up. You can do it, I hiss. His legs straighten, he shuffles on. I cover his back as we enter the narrow branch, walls slick and dripping. The masked men shout orders, cutting us off. I swing around to face them, heart hammering. My hand finds the ledger in my coat, pages of names and dates, and I fling it at their feet. The papers scatter. It's enough distraction. The men break formation to gather the pages. I nudge Danny forward. Go. He darts past me, small shape swallowed by darkness. I turn back and sprint down the tunnel after him. My boots slip. I catch myself and yank the map case from my coat pocket, the photo of my cruiser falling to the floor. It lies under my foot, the beam of a distant emergency light giving it an eerie glow. I cringe. If they get back there, they'll see my shift car and piece together my identity. No time to worry. The tunnel descends, the air growing cooler. I follow faint drip-drip echoes, each step adding distance between me and the pioneer's chance. The ladder beneath the feed store hatch must be close. I remember the rungs slick with water. We emerge into the wash of rain tunnel gloom near Miller's. Dim light filters through the hatch's gap above, and fresh air brushes against my face. Danny pauses, leaning against the stone. I join him, chest heaving. You okay? He nods, wiping snot and tears. I shift his weight, check his boots, caked with mud and chemicals. Stay put, I whisper. I pry the hatch open, its metal groans in protest. Rain pours in, blessed cold water after the workshop's stifling heat. I climb first, then drag Danny up behind me. We tumble onto the gravel road under an angry sky. Sirens wail, distant, but growing stronger. Deputies are finally coming. I scoop Danny into my arms and stagger toward my cruiser, keys glinting in my pocket. He presses his face into my raincoat, whimpering. I unlock the door, shift into the driver's seat, and kick the passenger door open. Get in, I grunt. He scrambles inside, shutting the door hard. My boots sink in mud as I rush around to the driver's side. I yank the door open and slam in, heart thudding as I turn the key. The engine snarls to life. Blue and red strobes sweep the fields as more cruisers arrive. Deputy Wright leaps from her car, flashlight in hand. "Sheriff, are you okay?" She yanks at my door, but I wave her off. "Get medical for the boy. And Claire, she's down below, near the steel door." I fire back toward the tunnel. Her eyes widen in understanding. She nods, sprinting toward her deputy. I flick the cruiser into gear and thunder down the gravel toward Dawson's pharmacy lot, where additional hatch entrances punctuate the asphalt. Danny leans forward, glass fogging under his breath. "Sheriff, where's Claire?" he asks, voice a wisp. I grip the wheel. Claire. My damn head hurts, remembering her broken eyes and chemical haze. I think of the steel door, the keypad, the whispers of coded voices behind the bars. The door might seal her in forever. I turn off the headlights and steer toward the pharmacy's rear, where storm drains and basement vents lie. There's a manhole cover I've seen, raised by their tunnel crew last night. I hop the curb, tires crunching the gravel again, and stop at the grate. I grab the ledger from the seat, tossing it to Danny. "Hold this. Keep it safe." He nods, flipping through the scratched names. I rush around back, pop the vent cover with a crowbar from the cruiser's trunk, never leave tools behind, and lift it. The sewer stench is thick, rancid with rot. I hesitate. Another trap? But Claire needs me. I slide in head first, the grate slipping closed behind me. Darkness swallows me. The only light is the weak beam from my phone, now at 5%. Water laps at my calves as I wade into the tunnel. Graffiti, I don't recognize, coats the walls. Symbols, numbers. The phrase, "they'll never stop." My chest tightens. I follow a shallow current toward a square of orange light ahead. Industrial emergency lamps installed by the pioneers. They wash over a heavy steel door with a keypad and a barred window. I press my phone to the glass. Claire is slumped inside, awake but trembling. My heart seizes. I pound on the door. "Claire, it's Reyes. Are you okay?" She jolts, pressing her back against the cell's far wall. Behind her, in the dim hall, a man in a surgical mask scribbles symbols on the wall with chalk. He hears me, raises gloved fingers to his lips and tuts. He wipes the chalk into his palm, then draws a circle on the door's keypad, covering digits 3, 7, 1, and 9. His breath fogs the glass. He tilts his head. My blood runs cold. That's the code. He disappears into the darkness. The door beeps red. The code fails. Claire presses her palms to the glass, mouth opening and closing in panic. She mouths, "Help me." I cup my hand over my mouth. "Claire, remember the X on the pharmacy wall? The staff meeting notice. Our clue. It was June 12th. Are Purli Paniranda I punch 0612. The lock clicks. The door swings inward with a howl of hinges. I grasp Claire's arm and shepherd her into the tunnel as footsteps thunder nearer. I shove her ahead. Up ahead, I see Marathon Street through a grated hatch, daylight seeping in around the edges. We race toward it, dripping wet. Behind us, the man in the surgical mask emerges with 2 accomplices. 3 pioneers, blocked by a crumbling crate. He raises his hand, fingers pointing. A whistle blows, a signal. The 2 figures vanish down side tunnels. The lead pioneer steps forward, face pale behind the mask. He regards us with cold curiosity. I plant myself between him and Claire, fists up. His voice crackles over a hidden speaker. "Sheriff Reyes, you're a persistent one, but you can't save them all." I taste bile. "You're coming with me." I pull Claire aside and sprint for the grate. I reach the hatch just as he fires a flare gun into the ceiling. Sparks rain down, igniting the oily residue. Flames lick the tunnel walls. Smoke swells. I clutch Claire's hand and heave the grate loose. Sunlight floods in. I drag her upward as the fire roars below. I yank the hatch closed and lock it. Everyone on Marathon Street stares at the billowing smoke and embered grate. Deputies swarm with oxygen masks. Hoses snake down their arms. I crane over the edge. They've cut power to the tunnel lights, and the pioneers are nowhere in sight. The grate slams shut behind me with a final clang. Claire coughs, eyes watering. I brush soot from her sleeve. "You're safe now," I whisper, though my voice trembles. She nods, clutching the ledger to her chest. I take a shaky breath. Behind me, backups flood the lot. Sirens and radios crackle, but all I hear is the distant roar of the workshop's fire. The tunnels behind the feed store and pharmacy blaze, smoke billowing into the pre-dawn sky. Smoke coils into the pre-dawn sky like a wound that will never heal. I stand beside Deputy Wright, both of us watching flames lap at the feed store's back console, and the pharmacy vent covers. Fire engines scream in. Hoses crackle as deputies train streams of water down the great openings, tunnels flooding with hiss and steam. Claire stands close to me, clutching the ledger, cheeks streaked with soot and tears. She's exhausted, shaking, but alive. For all we've lost, that counts for something. I pat her shoulder, voice low. "You did good." She manages a small nod, eyes wide as the world burns below our feet. I glance around. The street is lined with cruisers, ambulances, reporters jostling for a glimpse. Neighbors in pajamas gather across the road, cell phones raised to capture the chaos. Pine Hollow never had a night like this, and my gut twists with guilt. My town, my responsibility. Deputy Wright leans close. "They found Danny safe off the quarry road at sunrise. He led us here." Relief floods through me. Good work, but my mind is already shifting. What comes next? We can't just mop up flames and call it done. There's evidence down there, the vials, the notebooks, the tapes. We need forensics, federal agencies, everything we can muster. But in this town, resources are thin. A shrill whistle cuts the air. I spin toward the pharmacy entrance where two deputies stand over a figure in a surgical mask, hands bound behind his back. The mask is soaked with sweat, white beneath the carbon black that's smeared around it. He's the woman pioneer, Dr. Helena Quist, her bright eyes sunk in hollows. They cuff her, and she looks at me with cool detachment. No regrets flicker in her gaze, only mild curiosity, as if she's watching a play unfold. I step forward. "Quist," I say, voice stringent. "You're under arrest for kidnapping, human experimentation, and conspiracy to commit mass homicide." She inclines her head. "A pity you had to burn down half your town to prove it." The judge's gavel cracks in my mind. She's right. Our evidence is charred or drowned. The notebooks are steam-ruined. I doubt any tapes survived the flood. All we have are the physical remnants, the ledger scraps, the teddy bear pieces, and our testimonies. Will that be enough? A sudden gust of wind shifts the smoke column, revealing the feed store's blackened skeleton. In that motion, something catches my eye. A horseshoe hanging on the side of the burned wooden wall, scorched at one edge but unmistakably the same polished emblem. I stare, blood turning to ice. I didn't leave it there. We stomped on every grate, checked tunnels, and yet it dangled before me like a trophy, mocking, unsolved. I walk across the gravel, boots crunching on ash, and reach for the horseshoe. The metal is hot, still warm from the fire. It throbs in my palm. Heat stings my fingers. I turn it over, faint scratches along its rim, marks I haven't seen before. Not the tidy etchings of the pioneers, but a claw-like gouge. It wasn't theirs, it's something else. Something alive and still moving in those tunnels. I tuck the horseshoe inside my coat, slipping past the cuffs on Dr. Quist as she's loaded into the paddy wagon. She watches me with that unblinking calm. "You'll never find them all," she calls out as the door slams. A match struck and burned in my gut, them all. She wasn't just talking about the pioneers, not just the 4 masked figures I cornered. Something else shares those depths with us. An unknown entity, silent and patient. Claire steps up beside me, her voice a thin thread. "Sheriff, what now?" I glance at the ledger in her hands. 4 names still clean, blank spaces for new ones. I can't promise safety. I can't guarantee peace for her or Pine Hollow. But I turn to face the gathering crowd, blue and red lights throwing us into sharp relief. I raise a hand like an oath. "We rebuild," I say. "We keep searching." My own words feel hollow. The media push forward, cameras clicking. I refuse them my face. I turn Claire toward Deputy Wright, who leads her to the ambulance. Claire looks back, eyes meeting mine. She holds up the ledger. I nod once, sharply. I walk back toward the skeleton of Miller's feed store. Rain starting to fall. Cold drops hissing on hot coals. The town will ask questions tomorrow. Who's to blame? How this horror went unseen so long. They'll talk about Quist, the pioneers, the tunnels. But at night, when the lights go out, their children will leave their rooms and listen to static on their radios, waiting for that single beep that never comes. I pause at the feed store's charred entrance, hand on the burned wood. The horseshoe in my pocket burns against my ribs. I pull it out, cradle it in both hands. The claw marks glint in the dawn. I realize now that it's not a horseshoe at all, but a calling card, not left by human hands. Something much older, something that still watches. I slip the emblem back inside my coat. My shift is over. The sun peaks on the horizon. I should go home, sleep a normal sleep, tuck my shotgun under the bed. But I can't. Not with the hushed fear that slithered through those tunnels. Not with the knowledge that in every dark corner of this town there lies a hidden door, waiting. I turn and walk away, boots heavy in ash. The world wakes around me. Fire crews douse hot spots. Deputies cordon off entrances. Reporters shout questions. But my eyes stay on the feed store's broken facade. What door will open next time I least expect it? I tap the mic again, low and deliberate, so the static doesn't swallow my voice. It's 2:07 a.m. on November 3rd, 2002, and I'm parked half a mile from the Wallace farmstead. The headlights cut through the fog in dull yellow arcs, illuminating the broken fence posts and mud-caked cornstalks. I've been on this county road 1,000 times, but tonight feels different. The air tastes wrong, like ash from a dying fire. I've logged 25 years of shift notes, routine traffic stops, and dispatched drunks home safely. I've seen people do the worst things in broad daylight, but nothing prepared me for a kid's sneaker iced in mud, or my name carved into an oak where no one should be. I shouldn't have come alone. I know that now. I should have radioed in, but the radio clicked to silence as soon as I set foot on the gravel drive. The governor wanted the old analog system because it saved money. Everyone in dispatch can hear me, but I can't hear them. So I drove out here under the assumption it'd be nothing. Probably a busted window or a rodent setting off an interior light. The dispatcher joked last week about my field lantern. "Don't go full pioneer haze," she said. Tonight I'm grateful for its dull glow. The porch creaks under my weight as I cross the threshold. My boots sink into the decaying wood, the splinters complaining under my soles. I sweep the beam across the room, peeling wallpaper, a rusted sink, empty chairs turned over like someone fled in a hurry. Under one chair, the sneaker glares back at me. Small, bright red, scuffed at the toe. Not mine, not any adult's size. My radio would have warned me had a child ever gone missing here. No calls, no Amber Alerts. I stand, heart hammering, and walk the hall toward the kitchen. The fog presses at the windows like curious faces trying to see inside. I find no explanation for the sneaker, so I bag it in an evidence pouch, though evidence of what, I'm not sure. Then I notice the pantry door ajar, its hinges swaying softly. I remember the layout. The shelf should sit flush against the wall, jars lined up in neat rows. Empty, but neat. I push the door open, and there it is. A single glass jar on the top shelf, containing a tarnished silver key. The key floats in an inch of cloudy water, its teeth worn smooth. My mind races. Mortenson's barn door lock that no one could pick, the one a carpenter said he'd never seen before. Could this key belong there? A clue or a lure? I should bag it too, but I hesitate. If I remove it, whatever set this up might know I came looking. My chest tightens. The old farmhouse groans behind me as if settling deeper into the earth. I pocket the jar and step back into the hall. My radio crackles in my jacket. Brief, like a caller trying to break through, and then it dies again. I tap the side. "Hayes to dispatch," I murmur, more to steady myself than with hope of a reply. Silence. My breath fogs in the beam of the lantern. Somewhere in the dark, the house exhales. A long, creaking sigh that makes me freeze. I follow the footprints from the front stoop, the only tracks in the fine dust, my own. They lead out the back door and into the fields. The fog has thickened, and the lantern's glow reaches only 5 feet before drowning in gray. I close my eyes, listen to the distant hum of insects, too loud for this hour. When I open them, I aim toward the faint glow of my cruiser's headlights. They're farther south than I parked. I'm sure of it. I start toward them, boots squelching through mud, the lantern's handle slick in my gloved hand. I pass the broken fence, each post leaning like a crooked finger pointing me onward. I wonder how long it took for the sneaker's owner to leave it here, and where they went. Another question no one can answer. At the edge of the field, a massive oak stands alone, its branches skeletal against the sky. Carved into its bark are 3 letters, H-A-A-Y. Freshly cut, the sap still glimmering like tears. I swallow hard. I've never seen this path on any map. Yet there's a narrow trail curling into the woods, lined with fallen leaves. I know I should turn back, radio for help, retreat to the station. But something, duty, curiosity, stubborn pride, pushes me forward. My lantern casts long shadows, twisted limbs, gnarled roots, the promise of secrets better left buried. I follow the trail, each step louder against the hush. The path opens onto a clearing where an old child's bicycle rests on its side, rust eating the frame, leaves tangled in the spokes. No missing person file mentions a kid vanishing by Wallace Road. Yet, here it is, handlebars bent, chain slack. Next to the bicycle, nailed to a weathered post, is a note. "Thank you for finding me." The letters are childlike, painted in smeared red that looks more like rust. My throat goes dry. My lantern wavers. I click it on and off, heart thundering. Of all the horrors I've seen, this cruel tease of a child's voice, cuts deepest. A scrape of fabric against bark jolts me. I swing the lantern toward the sound. Nothing but shadows and the moon peeking through ragged clouds. I call out, voice trembling. "Hello? Show yourself." No answer. Only the scrape again, closer now, and a whisper so faint I almost miss it. "Don't go back." I stiffen. No logical thought remains, only instincts and dread. The radio in my jacket crackles lifeless, and I hear my own voice begging, "Hayes, do you copy?" The static swallows me whole. I close my eyes, counting my breath, willing my hand to stop shaking. When I open them, the fallen leaves have shifted, footprints leading away from the path into the trees. Mine, alongside another set, smaller, trailing off toward darkness. My blood runs cold. I grip the lantern tighter and take a step forward, prompting a distant creak like a door unlocking itself. I step off the narrow trail and into a thicket of saplings whose branches jab at my jacket like accusing fingers. My lantern swings wildly, each arc revealing blank darkness, then something. A pale glint of what might be eyes or dropped metal, only to vanish when I focus. The ground underfoot is soft, the fallen leaves matted and slick, the earth damp from last night's drizzle. My heart hammers in my ears as I follow the two sets of footprints, one mine, the other too small for any adult boot. They weave between the trees, circling like two predators sizing each other up, converging, diverging. I pause, breath steaming in the lantern's glow. A distant crow caws, sharp and hollow. It echoes off unseen trunks, then cuts off, leaving silence deeper than before. I raise my radio to my mouth. "Hayes to dispatch." But the only response is the hiss of static, unbroken, deafening. I drop it into my jacket pocket and grip the lantern tighter. Logic tells me to retreat, to get back to the cruiser and call for backup. But duty and dread push me forward. I have to know who, or what, walks these woods alongside me. The footprints lead me downhill, the incline gradual but enough to make my legs protest. The trees thin out into a slope overlooking a small pond, half hidden by reeds. Moonlight glints on the water's surface, broken by ripples that shape themselves into concentric rings, then vanish. No breeze stirs, no creature disturbs the stillness. Yet the water shifts, as if something moves beneath, unseen. My gut tightens. I scan the shoreline. No footprints in the mud, no broken reeds. Only the path I've made and that child-sized print leading toward the water's edge. I remember Mortenson's barn, how its doors were padlocked tight, the windows reinforced with steel bars, yet people whispered of strange lights flickering inside at night. His neighbor claimed he heard baby cries, though Mortenson had no children. Now I find a child's sneaker in the farmhouse, a bicycle in the clearing, prints leading here, and this pond unsettlingly alive under the moon. I crouch at the bank, lantern beam trembling over rippled patterns. Water laps softly, whispering against mud. I consider that jarred key. Could its lock be in a cellar shaft beneath this pond? The thought makes my skin crawl. Something about all this doesn't add up. Missing explorer, phantom child's possessions, impossible footprints. And my name carved on that oak, blood bright in the sap. A soft noise behind me, like a boot pressing into dry leaves, snaps my head around. Lantern flares on empty trees. I tense, muscles coiled, and take a half step back. The sound repeats, closer. A slow, shuffling stride. I call out, voice low but firm. "Show yourself!" My words crack. No answer, only the soft swirling of water. My own footprints in the mud stand alone. I let out a slow breath and continue down to the water line. The edges of the pond are choked with algae and fallen logs. The far side fades into black. I pit my boots in the mud and lean forward, peering into the murk. Something glints 20 feet out, a solitary object shimmering under moonlight, angular like metal. I frown. Could it be the jar? The silver key? My mind flickers with possibilities. I step in. One boot, then squelch the other. The water is ice cold, searing through my socks. I grit my teeth and wade forward, mud sucking at my steps. When I'm chest high, I stop. The water is too cloudy to see, but I feel it press around me as if the pond itself resists intrusion. I reach out, fingertips skimming the murky surface toward the glint. It shifts, a whisper of motion under the water. I freeze. A distant metallic tinkle rings out, like a dropped key. I whirl, and my lantern swings across the pond's surface. The glint is gone. My lantern's glow fractures over dark shapes floating just below. Bottles? Rocks? I can't tell. All I know is that the water moves in unnatural arcs, dividing around something beneath. A bubble surfaces, then pops, tiny and silvery. My breath catches. No fish make bubbles like that. I yank my foot out of the mud and scramble back to the bank, water sloshing up my legs. I stumble onto dry land, heart racing. I shine the lantern across the pond's edge and catch a glimpse of tire tracks pressed into the mud. Narrow, a child's bicycle wheel, half submerged, the other half imprinted on the bank. They lead to the reeds, then vanish. I swallow hard, forcing my breathing back to normal. I glance over my shoulder at the forest. The trail I came down is gone. No footprints, no broken underbrush. The trees here stand too close, like silent sentinels. I turn back to the pond, but its surface is calm again, as if nothing disturbed it. The night air is thick with expectation. I feel his eyes on me. Him, or her, or whatever walks these woods in child-sized steps, leaving toys in my path. A sudden rustle from the tree line to my left snaps every nerve taut. I swing the lantern. Its beam catches a flash of white cloth drifting behind a tree. I call out, voice shaking. "I'm a sheriff's deputy. Come out now." Silence. Then a soft giggle. Childlike, distant, echoing through the trees. My stomach twists. I shine the light toward the sound, but find nothing. The giggle fades into nothingness, leaving only the pounding of my heart. I back away from the water, following the shoreline toward my cruiser's headlights. Now a faint glow beyond the reeds. My lantern trembles in my hand. Every snap of a twig, every distant hoot of an owl sounds like a warning. Don't turn around. I swallow, eyes fixed on that distant light, steps hurried but careful. As I near the tree line, I stumble over something hard. I look down, an old school satchel, cracked leather, its flap undone. Inside, I see folded papers, yellowed with age. I kneel and pull one out. Handwritten crayon scrawls spelling, "Find me." My throat goes dry. I glance around. Moonlight weakens behind clouds. The satchel's strap is looped around a young oak sapling, tying it like a trophy. I yank it free, and the sapling snaps up, sending my lantern beam skyward. The puddle of light reveals footprints converging at the sapling. Mine, the child's, and a third set. I recognize them instantly. Adult boots, wide and heavy, the pattern unique to my own county cruiser's tires. How did they get here? Who else has been following this path? My blood runs cold. I scramble to my feet, satchel under my arm. The rustle in the leaves returns, stronger, circling me. I whirl, lantern flashing between trees, and catch the silhouette of a figure, tall, hunched, impossible to identify, darting behind an oak. I call out, adrenaline searing my voice, "I'm coming for you." No answer, only the crunch of leaves under distant footsteps, speeding away. I follow, lunging between trees. each step sending lantern light dancing on bark. The forest grows denser, air colder. The satchel bangs against my side, papers rustling inside. I let the moon guide me until I burst from the trees into a clearing I've never seen. An open field ringed by dead cornstalks, the ground carpeted in fallen leaves. In the center stands an old well, its stone mouth cracked and overgrown with vines. A ladder leads down into shadow. I freeze, lantern beam falling on the rusted iron grate covering the well. It's ajar. I hear muffled tapping from below, like fingers drumming on stone. My breath hitches. I know I shouldn't. Everyone says you don't look down. You don't answer the things whispering from the deep. But duty forces me closer. I lean over, wind whipping my voice downward. If there's someone down there, talk to me. Silence, then a single word, soft and hollow, rising from the darkness. Haze. The grate clatters as something shifts beneath. My lantern flickers. I step back, chest tightening. The tapping stops. The field stretches in emptiness. The well yawns like a mouth waiting to swallow me. I stumble backward as the well's hollow chuckle fades into the night. My lantern quivers in my hand, casting jittery shadows across the cornstalk stubble. The air feels impossibly still. No breeze, no distant insect hum, only the pounding of my heart echoing in my ears. I force myself to inhale, slow and deliberate, but each breath tastes of cold earth and old fear. I glance down at the satchel in my hand, its strap still damp with morning dew. Inside, the crayon, smeared papers rustle like a whisper in the field's hush. I step away from the well, boots sinking into the leaf-strewn ground. Every instinct screams to retreat, to race back through the woods, find my cruiser and never look back. But I'm here, and something demands answers. I peer into the darkness where the tree line meets the field. The fence posts beyond flicker in the lantern's beam, like uneven teeth in a crooked grin. One post bears fresh scratches, deep gouges that weren't there moments ago. I kneel, pressing a gloved finger into the wood. The scratches form letters, M-E-E-T. Below them, a single arrow points back toward the woods. I swallow hard. Weaving through fog-choked cornrows, I follow the arrow's direction. My lantern cuts a path between the dead stalks, each rustle hinting at movement just beyond my sight. My pulse throbs as I hurry toward the tree line, the arrowed post receding behind me. The shadows stretch and contort, mocking my progress. I remember Dispatch's laughter about my lantern again. Tonight, its flicker is the only thing keeping the darkness at bay. I break through the edge of the field and skid to a halt at the base of the trail where I first entered. The ground underfoot is churned, as if something heavy slid downhill toward the well. I see deep scrapes gouged into the path, parallel grooves vanishing into the forest's teeth. I shine the lantern along them, tool marks, like someone rasped the soil with a rake to cover footprints. But the grooves are too even, too purposeful, like clawed fingers digging through earth. I shudder. A soft tapping comes from the right, among the oaks. I spin, lantern beam slicing through thick fog. There, etched onto the trunk of a grand old oak, are dozens of initials and dates. J.W. 1962, K.M. 1974, E.H. 1988. The years climb toward the present. H.H. 2002. My breath catches. Who carved those? More unsettling, those initials match missing person cases I've investigated over the years. Cold files stacked in dusty drawers. J.W., a young woman who vanished along Red Creek Road. K.M., a runaway found drowned. E.H., a farmhand who never returned from a late-night shift. And H.H., Hayes, my own initials. My legs tremble. I shine the light lower. Carved in smaller letters, the next date is circled. Blank, waiting. Beneath it, crudely etched, 2002, November 3rd. Today's date? My chest tightens. I press my palm against the bark, fingers brushing the gnarled wood. The sap oozes through the carving like dark blood. I swallow hard. A cold dread curls in my stomach. Something has been marking these woods for decades, collecting names like trophies, and now it has marked me. The radio in my pocket crackles. I fumble for it, pressing it to my ear. A single beep, half a second long, lingers before silence. I exhale, relief mingled with unease. Backup? Dispatch? But no voice comes through, only static that hums like a warning. I flip the radio over. Its antenna is bent, the casing scratched. It feels wrong, like it's been here longer than I have. I drag my gaze upward to the ladder descending into the well. The iron rungs gleam faintly where moonlight trickles through the cracked stone. The well's mouth yawns black, a void promising discovery and danger. I shove the radio into my pocket and approach the ladder, heart thundering with a mixture of dread and determination. I've come this far, I can't turn back now. I grip the first rung, cold against my glove, and test my weight. The iron groans under me but holds. I climb down, each rung clicking against my heel until I'm level with the rim. The lantern's beam trails the ladder downward, revealing a slick layer of moss on the stones. The air here tastes metallic, like wet concrete mixed with old leather. I reach the bottom and step onto uneven stones. The ladder creaks as I let go and I squeeze the satchel strap tighter. A low whistle echoes from somewhere below, crisp and childish. It echoes off the stone walls, returning to me warped and distant. My palms sweat despite the chill. I crouch and sweep the lantern across the chamber. The walls are carved rough, hewn stone, not natural rock. Someone carved this place deliberately, centuries ago. Stalactites hang like teeth from the ceiling, dripping into dark pools that glint where the light hits. In one pool, I see a flash of red, the same shade as the sneaker. A glove, small, red, floats just below the surface, its fingers curled as if reaching for the light. My stomach twists. I step closer, feet splashing faintly. The glove drifts away from me, as if pushed by unseen currents. A wet, scraping noise behind me makes me spin. The ladder rungs are empty. No footprints or drag marks up or down. Whoever, or whatever, brought the glove here did it before I arrived. The glove's cuff bears a name scrawled in black marker. Maggie. Maggie. A name I recognize from a missing child poster decades old. Maggie Wallace, the farmer's daughter who vanished in 1962. Her case, filed under J.W.'s initials, never solved. I swallow, pressing my back to the stones. My lantern trembles and I realize I'm holding my breath. Somewhere in the darkness, a child's whisper lingers. Maggie. I grip the satchel, feeling the papers rumble against my side. I dare not open it down here. Instead, I slide one hand into my jacket pocket and touch the pistol's grip, comforting, cold steel. I step deeper into the chamber, lantern beam bobbing over cart tracks embedded in slick limestone. The tracks lead toward a narrow tunnel gouged into the wall. I shine the beam into the blackness. Tree roots snake from above, weaving around the edges of the arch. The tunnel slopes downward, air growing warmer. I pause, listening. The chamber behind me is silent. No dripping water, no whistles, only my own heartbeat. Yet from ahead comes a faint thud, like footsteps in heavy boots, slow and deliberate. I swallow again and advance. The tunnel narrows, forcing me to duck under hanging roots. I feel them brush my helmet, soft and organic. A musty scent rises. Damp earth, decayed leaves, something sweeter, like rotting sugar. I crouch lower, the opening shrinking until I can only crawl. Each movement sends small stones tumbling, clattering down the slope. The footsteps stop. Silence presses in. I reach the low ceiling and drag my lantern forward, revealing square-edged stones forming what looks like a doorway. I climb to my feet and find a rusted latch, half covered in moss. I pull it open and step into a larger cavern, its walls lined with narrow alcoves carved into stone. Each alcove holds an object, a tarnished sheriff's badge, a broken wristwatch, a child's toy figurine, a faded photograph of a smiling family, faces I know, missing persons I sought but never found. My throat tightens. In the center of the cavern lies a crude altar, a slab of stone stained dark, upon which sits a small wooden box sealed with rope. The atmosphere is thick, ancient, and terrible. I shine the lantern on the box. Crude carvings spiral around it, symbols I don't recognize. Beneath it, written in chipped paint on the altar's edge, a single line. Time runs out. My gut clenches. I step forward, lantern casting long shadows onto the alcoves. I could open the box, get answers, find evidence. But instinct screams that some secrets weren't meant to be unearthed. I glance back, toward the tunnel, toward the ladder, toward the distant world above. My radio bleeps again, weak, urgent. I jolt, hand flying to the pocket. I press the button. Hayes, dispatch, do you copy? The beep answers me, prompt, familiar, before it dies again. No voice follows. My stomach twists. The radio's blink confirms it tried to reconnect, but something prevented it, something down here. My lantern flickers, sputters. I shake it, the flame steadies. The box calls to me, beckons with promise of truth. And yet, leaving it sealed feels safer. I step back, intending to retreat, but a scraping behind me stops me cold. I pivot slowly, lantern beam slicing through darkness, and see the door to the tunnel has closed of its own accord, dirt and stones piled at its base. No ladder, no path back. Only the altar and its box in the silence. I raise my pistol, voice low. If you want this, come take it. My words echo. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then, from one of the alcoves, comes a soft click, like a lock disengaging. My lantern swings toward the sound. The alcove holds a mirror, its surface dusty. I wipe it with my sleeve. In the reflection behind me stands a small child. Pale, dripping wet, eyes hollow. I spin and fire, the shot deafening in the cavern. When I turn back, the alcove is empty. Only the mirror remains, cracked. My lantern drops, guttering. I back toward the altar, breath ragged. The box lies open now, rope frayed. Inside, a single sheet of paper. A crude map showing my route. Farmhouse, pond, well, tunnel, ending at a crosshair over the altar. Beneath the map, scrawled in the same black crayon, "You came." A faint radio beep echoes unanswered. I press the lantern to my chest and reach for the map, hand trembling. A distant creak, like the well ladder shifting, rings out. I glance toward the tunnel mouth, now choked with stone. I realize I am truly alone. I press my back against the cold stone of the altar, trying to steady my breathing. My pistol is still warm in my grip, the echo of that single shot reverberating through the cavern's walls like a judgment bell. The lantern's weak flame dances across the broken mirror, its cracked surface reflecting my own wide-eyed stare, fractured into slivers of light. For a moment, I wonder if what I saw was real or a trick of my exhausted mind, but the puddle of water at my feet confirms it. I am as wet and muddy as the deeper tunnels. The box on the altar lies open at my feet, the map mocking me with its crude accuracy. I bend down and scoop up the paper, smoothing its edges on the rough stone. The crosshair marking the altar's center sits like a target painted on my chest. You came. It doesn't tell me how to escape. It tells me I'm supposed to be here, drawn in by some force older than law or reason. I slip the map into my jacket's inner pocket and stand, glancing around the alcoves at the trophies of vanished lives. The child's figurine has turned to face me now, its painted eyes eerily bright, as if watching. I shift my weight, and the floor beneath the altar trembles ever so slightly, sending a shower of dust motes through the lantern beam. A low rumble echoes from somewhere above, steel on stone, like the grate at the well being jarred loose. I feel it more than hear it, a tremor of expectation that thrums beneath my boots. My chest tightens. The illicit laughter of that cavern, childlike, mocking, begins again, drifting through the alcoves in soft whispers I can't quite make out. I clamp my free hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. Then the grunt of shifting earth, closer now, and a scrape of metal on metal. The grate above must be rising, soil and rock sliding down the well's shaft to collapse into the chamber. If so, the only ladder out is gone. My blood turns cold. I spin toward where the tunnel mouth used to gape, relieved to see it still stands. An archway framed by roots and moss, but its floor is slick and rising. Mud oozes outward, closing off the passage as if the earth itself wants to swallow me alive. I step forward, boot heels pressing into the grimed limestone, but feel the mud creeping in at my ankles. A stray stone clatters across the floor. Some unseen hand has joined me in this chamber. I raise my pistol, beam swinging on empty alcoves. No figure emerges, only the whistle of air through cracks in the stone. The rumble above grows louder, punctuated by a distant crack, as though a massive weight shifts at the well's mouth. Dust flutters down from the ceiling. The carving overhead glistens, ancient symbols I can't decipher, carved into every ceiling beam. I note them mentally, triangles, concentric circles, shapes that repeat around the shaft. They glow faintly in the lantern's light, like a warning or a chant. I force myself to move. The tunnel behind me is nearly closed. The rising mud will seal it completely in minutes. I have 3 choices. Try the blocked tunnel, climb back up a slick ladder that may collapse beneath me, or something else entirely. My gaze falls on the alcoves. One alcove holds a small hand-drawn lantern symbol on the wall, faint yet distinct among the carvings. Beneath it, etched in the same crude script, is a simple arrow pointing toward a niche hidden in shadow. I edge over, boots slipping in the mud, and shine the lantern into the dark corner. There, almost invisible, is a seam between stones, an outline of a door. My pulse hammers. I slide my gloved hand along the crack and find a rusty latch set into the stone. It turns with a creak, resisting for a heartbeat before giving way. I brace my shoulder against the door and push. Ancient hinges groan, and the stone panel swings inward to reveal a narrow passage, hemmed in by rough-hewn walls. Beyond, I see pinpricks of light, faint, flickering, as if lanterns burn somewhere just out of sight. I hesitate, weight balanced on one foot, listening. The cavern behind me throbs with shifting mud and the distant groan of metal above. The child's laughter has stopped, replaced by a low humming that emanates from the passage beyond. It feels mechanical and organic all at once, like a heartbeat echoed through metal vents. There's no turning back. I slip through the opening, the door sliding closed behind me with a final click. I'm in a tunnel barely wide enough to allow my shoulders to pass, the ceiling too low to stand upright. The walls here are smoother, too perfect for a natural cave, and stamped at intervals with the same symbols from the ceiling back there. Circles within triangles, radiating lines. They glow phosphorescently, giving off a pale green light that pulses in time with the humming. My lantern is forgotten in my hand, its flame long since spattered out by the cave's dampness. I press on, each step sliding on damp stone, following the symbols deeper. The tunnel turns sharply, and I find myself in a chamber lit by hanging iron lamps, their flames steady and sulphurous, illuminating a scene that steals my breath. Dozens of statues stand in a ring around a central column of stone. No, not statues, figures. Life-size effigies carved from ivory-colored rock, each one posed in agony or supplication. Some appear to be civilians, a woman cradling a crying child, a man shielding his face. Others wear uniforms, a fireman, a schoolteacher, a state trooper, and one statue resembles me, wide-eyed, pistol drawn, standing frozen at the edge of the ring. I step forward, boots echoing against the marble floor. The effigies encircle an altar that matches the one above, though smaller, more ornate. On this altar rests a scale, one pan empty, the other holding my sheriff's badge. The badge's metal gleams with otherworldly light, as if it has never tarnished. I reach for it, and the room quakes. The lamps gutter, casting long, quivering shadows. From somewhere in the ring comes a whispering chorus, soft words in no language I recognize. The statues' mouths move as though breathing, their blank eyes turning toward me. I swivel, pistol raised, but there's no one to fire at. Only the steady hum banging in my chest. I lean over the altar, fingertips brushing my badge. It is cold, impossibly so, as if it were forged from ice. The weight of it is wrong, too heavy for its size. I lift it from the pan, and the statues begin to crack. Tiny fractures spider across the stone figures spreading outward from the badge. Dust and small chips fall, revealing dark veins of tarnished metal beneath. I drop the badge back onto the scale and stumble away. The entire ring of effigies shudders, one stone hand sliding from its wrist and landing with a hollow clunk on the floor. The lamps flare and go out, plunging me into darkness punctuated only by the pulsing symbols in the tunnel behind me. A sudden rush of air howls through the chamber as the doorway slams open. The phosphorescent symbols flicker off at once, leaving only blackness. I fumble for my radio, if it still works. When I press the button, a single long beep answers, more insistent than before, and then a voice, muffled, urgent, dispatch or someone else, I can't tell. The speaker crackles. Hayes, do you copy? My heart leaps. I slam my palm over the button to keep the sound contained, but the words come through again, closer, urgent. Hayes, we're here. Stay calm. I dial the volume up, voice trembling. Dispatch. Who is this? What happened? I'm trapped. The line goes dead. The only sound now is the hum returning, louder, as though the entire chamber has woken, the statues cracking echoes in the gloom like distant thunder. My pulse races. I spin in the darkness, pistol drawn, lantern gone, and hear the soft scrape of stone on stone. Footsteps? They're not my own. I whisper into the dark, show yourself. Just then, the lamp over the altar flickers back to life, only to reveal one statue missing, its place now empty among the cracked ring. Where the figure stood is nothing but jagged stubble of stone. In the murky light, I make out fresh footprints leading from the gap toward the shadows, my own, and another set, tiny and indistinct. I let the darkness swallow me for a moment, heartbeat pounding in my ears as I stand amid the broken effigies. The chamber's air tastes stale and metallic, dust from cracked stone and oil from the lamps mixing in my lungs. My pistol feels weightless in my grasp, like nothing more than a paperweight. The hum pulses again, vibrating through the floor and up through my boots. I trace its source to the cracked statue base, a fissure wide enough to slip my hand in. I edge closer, pressing my palm into the cleft. The stone's inner surface is slick with moisture, and I catch a faint glimmer of something metallic wedged within. An old rotary phone dial, the circular plate still intact, numbers faintly painted in red around its rim. I crouch, brushing away stone dust, and pry the dial free. My lantern remains dark. The lamp overhead flickers, casting dancing shadows that make the broken statues around me flicker in and out of existence. I cradle the dial, uncanny in this tomb of forgotten things, and turn to the altar. The scale still holds my badge, half sinking into its own tarnished reflection. I yank the badge free and jam it into my pocket, along with the dial, then tuck the map beside it. My jacket feels heavy, overloaded with relics of mystery. But they're all I have. I step toward the tunnel exit, light returning to the symbols on the walls, their phosphorescent glow pulsing faster, as if in warning. The mortar between the stones shifts beneath my foot. An entire block groans. I freeze, then hear the grinding of hidden gears somewhere deep in the mountain. Something is moving. The statue's fractures widen, bits of stone litter the floor. I whirl, flashlight in hand, and catch a glimpse of the figure from the alcove reflection. Slender, hunched, draped in a sodden cloak, standing just beyond the ring of broken effigies. Its face is hidden, but I can see a child's outline, small shoulders hunched under a hood too big for its frame. I call out, voice thick, "Who are you? Show yourself." The figure doesn't move, only tilts its head as though listening. I take a step forward, and the creature shifts in place, slinking closer until the beam of the lamp catches its face. No eyes, only hollows that reflect the lantern flame like black mirrors. It lifts a hand, thin and pale, and points directly at me. My stomach drops. I expect it to speak, to whisper, but it only stands there, still as stone. Behind me, the tunnel's symbols flare bright, illuminating a new archway hidden in shadow, covered before by broken rubble. A passage I hadn't noticed opens into dim light. My instincts scream to flee that cavern, to retreat through the new exit before the whole place collapses. I glance back at the childlike figure. It hasn't moved, but I feel its gaze dragging me past the altar and through the arch. I edge toward the opening, one boot at a time, and the ground rumbles. The stone overhead shifts, shaking loose pebbles that clatter down into the room. I break into a hurried jog, slipping through the narrow arch, and stumble into a sloping corridor lit by sconces dripping oily wax. The walls here are carved smooth, the ceiling low. The symbols fade and vanish behind me, and for the first time in hours I feel relief. A way forward, a path toward escape. I keep moving, my steps echoing in the tunnel. The corridor narrows until I have to shuffle sideways, hand along the damp stone for balance. Then I break into a wider chamber, its floor covered in shallow water, ankle-high, glowing with bioluminescent algae that pulses in time with that hum. The water reflects the stalactites above, turned upside down like a star field. My lantern is useless. I switch it on anyway, and its beam is swallowed by the glow, as if the algae resents the intrusion. Ahead, I see a silhouette. A ladder carved into stone, spiraling upward toward a hazy circle of light. It looks familiar, like the rungs at the well. I step into the water, boots cold, and feel tugging at my ankles. The submerged roots of the trees above, snaking through cracks in the cavern, wrapping around my legs. I yank free, heart racing, and hurry toward the ladder. I climb, each rung slick, sapping my strength. The hum amplifies, beating in my skull. Halfway up, I glance down. The water churns around me, roots writhing as if alive. A black shape flickers beneath the surface, impossible to make out, but undeniably moving. I push on, hauling myself up until the tunnel opens to sky. I emerge into the basement of the old Wallace farmhouse. The damp smell of earth is gone, replaced by the sweet rot of mold and mildew. Moonlight filters through boarded-up windows, casting broken beams across the floor. I collapse onto the floorboards, wrenching off my jacket, lungs heaving. The air is still, silent except for the pounding in my ears. I struggle to my feet and survey the basement. Crates stacked against the walls, old farming tools hung on nails, sacks of seed. The bales of hay are rotted through, straw crumbling underfoot. In the center rests the well's grate, now closed and sealed flush with the floor. The silo door overhead is ajar, ladder rung missing halfway up. Dust motes drift in the moonlight like lazy moths. I should climb up, fight through the loft and out the barn door. But the ladder looks too narrow, too unstable. A fall would mean another broken bone, maybe worse. I turn toward a door at the far end, an exterior cellar door leading outside. Its once-painted surface is flaked away and the handle is rusted. I try it, locked. My pocket knife glitters. I insert the blade and twist. The lock clicks, and the door creaks open. I step outside, into the yard. Fog blankets the fields, grass slick with dew. A broken fence separates the yard from the road. I've been gone so long that the patrol car must be miles away, if it's still there at all. I stumble toward where I remember leaving it, and sure enough, I see the glow of headlights deeper in the fog. Relief washes me, but my foot hits something soft and gives way. I topple forward, face slamming into wet grass. I groan, lift my head, and see the soft shape of that red sneaker half buried at the fence line. Not mine. I look up at the headlights. They're moving. Two beams sweeping side to side. The engine isn't running. No one inside. I choke back a laugh. I've been chasing ghosts all night, trailing myself across fields and caverns. Yet there's something in the car's driver's seat. A single handprint smeared on the foggy windshield. Rough, tiny, too small for any adult or any child. I step closer, and the car unlocks itself with a click, doors unlatching. I grip the door handle, breath fogging in the cold air, and yank it open. Inside, the seats are soaked, reddish-brown stains glistening in the light. My lantern lies on the passenger seat, its glass cracked. I reach in, heart pounding, and pick it up. The light inside is gone, the lamp is dead. I drop it with a hollow thunk, then notice the rearview mirror. Taped to it is the jar containing the silver key, suspended in murky water. Beneath it, scrawled on the windshield in greasy finger strokes, "Lock it." I swallow hard. The door handle slips from my sweaty palm. I turn to look at the fields. No farmhouse, no cellar door, only miles of fog-shrouded grass. The patrol car's engine sputters to life on its own, idling as the headlights flare brighter, burning holes through the mist. The beam sweeps toward me, and I see, only for a moment, the figure of a child standing in the yard, water dripping from its cloak like it just climbed from the well. Then the light swallows it, and I'm blinded. I spin, fumbling for the car door, and as I pull it closed, the engine revs. The car lurches forward, tires spinning in the grass, then surges ahead down a road that wasn't there moments ago. It's driving itself, and I'm left standing, drenched in the fog. The tail lights fade. and the night returns to silence, except for the faint echo of small footsteps fading into the distance. I turn from the retreating taillights and the echo of children's footsteps, chest burning, lungs heaving with cold night air. For a moment I stand rooted in the fog, alone, unmoored from any reality I trusted. Then my cruiser's engine dies with a final sputter, headlights dying like candle flames. The silence that follows is heavier than any roar. The fields lie motionless, the air thick with anticipation. I force my legs to move, stepping forward on damp grass, boots sinking into dew-soaked earth. I pull my jacket tighter around me and glance at the patrol car's open door, lantern screen still cracked in the passenger seat. I should return to it, find a radio, call for help. But the car's taillights, red as fresh blood, have left a streak in my mind that screams danger. Instead, I head toward the farmhouse outline I recall glimpsing through the fog. One step, then another, until the shape of the house takes form. Rotting wood, sagging roof, the one window I never saw lit before, glowing yellow like someone waits inside. My radio crackles in my pocket, dead but haunted. I press it to my ear and hear nothing but faint dripping, as though water runs somewhere close. I yank it out and shake it, hoping for a miracle, but the antenna is twisted, wires frayed. I stuff it back into my pocket and continue toward the window. The glow casts a rectangle on the ground, and I half expect footprints leading inside, only to find none. The fog parts ahead, revealing the porch steps where the single red sneaker lies, one, not two, as though whoever left it expected me to find it and leave the pair behind. I climb the creaking porch and pause at the door. The glow bleeds through the gaps in the boards. I raise my hand to knock, but the board falls away in my grip, revealing a room lined with newspaper clippings tacked to the walls. Missing person posters, crime scene photos, dispatch transcripts, yesteryear's tragedies preserved in brittle yellow. Each clipping is annotated in faded ink, lines under names and dates. J.W., K.M., E.H., M.W., Hayes. My own portrait, cut from a yearbook photo pinned in the center of a sprawling web of red string. My head spins. I step inside. Footsteps echo on rotten floorboards. The window light disappears as the boards slam back into place. I'm plunged into darkness, save for the glow of a single lamp on a table in the far corner. Its shade is cracked, base slick with rust. I step toward it, and the lamp flickers to life as if it senses my approach, illuminating the walls in a sweep of yellow. The faces stare back. Maggie Wallace in school uniform, the urban explorer smiling next to a faded barn, a little girl in pigtails clutching a doll. And there, in the heart of the web, me, pinned like an insect. My journalistic eyes scan the annotations, arrows pointing outward to other names, questions scrawled in margins. Why did Hayes vanish? He followed the path. She sang in the well. My breathing catches. He, she. The annotations shift pronouns, looping around the center. I trace a line leading from my name to a single symbol repeated in the caverns, a circle bisected by a vertical line. Beneath it, a date, tomorrow's date in 2002, 11.04, marked with an X. A floorboard creaks behind me. I whirl, heart pounding, to see the foyer mirror reflect my own wide-eyed stare. But my reflection shifts. My eyes shine too bright. My mouth twists into a knowing smile before it snaps back to my terrified expression. I blink, and the mirror goes dark, glass smeared with something damp. My pulse races as I step back. The lamp flickers twice, then steadies on its last light. I grip the edge of a table as the wind picks up, howling through gaps in the walls. The red sneaker appears at my feet, as if dropped from above. I stare at it, pliant and silent. Then, atop the newspaper-covered table, I see movement. A sheet of paper sliding free from the clippings. I lean in. It lands on the floor with a soft whisper. I pick it up. Another map, simpler this time. Room layouts of the farmhouse. Living room, kitchen, basement hatch circled in red. In the margin, in trembling script, return what you took. My blood freezes. I reach into my pocket and pull out the tarnished silver key, its waterlogged jar long, gone from sight. The key's teeth are worn smooth. I run them over my thumb. Return what you took. The jar, the glove, the map? My mind races. I step back, away from the table, and the walls buckle. New boards pop loose, revealing niches cut into the wood. In each, an everyday object. A child's wooden whistle, a sheriff's badge, the broken bicycle chain. All arranged perfectly, like last night's path replayed in static tableau. The lamp sputters and dies. I'm plunged into darkness. Then, a single note from a whistle, high and hollow, echoing through the house. I gasp, stumbling backward, knocking into furniture. The whistle sounds again, louder, a plaintive call that pulls me toward the living room. I follow, boots echoing on floorboards, until the front door swings open of its own accord, revealing the night beyond. Fog, draped fields, distant cornstalk silhouettes. I step onto the porch, the wind whipping around me like cold fingers. Behind me, the house sighs. A long, settling creak, and the door slams shut. I spin, heart pounding, and see the window boards peel back, revealing that single, glowing pane. The little red sneaker is there on the windowsill next to a small wooden whistle. Beside them, etched into the glass in greasy finger strokes. One more piece. My throat goes dry. I tuck the key and map back into my pocket and reach for the whistle. Wind gusts through the broken siding, and I bring the whistle to my lips, uncertain if I should or not. The porch beneath creaks under weight I know is not my own. I close my eyes and blow a single, shaky note. The fog erupts into motion. Shapes swirl at the edge of the yard. Children's laughter, 1,000 voices calling me home. I drop the whistle and step back, heart racing. When I look again, the shapes have coalesced into the silhouettes of those missing. A young woman in a prom dress. A farmhand with calloused hands. A child in pigtails, my own silhouette among them. They stand in a ring around the farmhouse, facing inward, silent now. Their eyes, void and shining, fix on me. I realize I've become part of their circle. A final whistle sounds from the porch beneath me, and all the figures turn toward the house. The boards shift, cracking away as if alive, revealing a yawning darkness beyond the walls. I press my back against the railing, breath catching, as the door behind me shutters open again. I should run. I want to run, but I can't move. Because from the shadows inside, a figure steps forward. Tall, cloaked, arm outstretched, holding something familiar. A child's red sneaker. From the porch, the cloaked figure's smile stretches unnaturally wide, the red sneaker dangling in its bony fingers. I step backward, heart pounding, the wooden boards groaning beneath each retreating foot. Moonlight glints off its pale cheekbones, though its face remains obscured beneath the hood. The circle of missing, those motionless silhouettes in the yard, press closer, their feet stirring dew-soaked grass into misty halos that drift toward me. I swallow, mouth dry. The wind carries distant static, like a radio struggling to tune in. I reach into my pocket for the whittled key, fingertip brushing its cold metal. The whisper of why, static crescendos, then cuts out. I stare at the figure. Its smile falters, replaced by something colder, more expectant. "Which piece?" it murmurs, its voice ragged, childlike and ancient all at once. The world tilts. I clutch the porch railing. I glance at the scattered artifacts, the sneaker, the whistle, the badge I stole back, laid out like a twisted offering. Fear spikes as I realize I still hold something apart from them, something the figure wants. My hand darts to the map tucked against my ribs. The paper is damp and limp. Under lamplight, it reveals a final waypoint scrawled in shaky script. Under the silo. My breath catches. Mortenson's abandoned barn silo, 2 fields over, long since fenced off. The map's arrow points downhill from here, into darkness punctuated only by broken fence stanchions. A sudden creak sounds from inside the house. A floorboard shifting, a door inching open, and my head snaps toward the dark window. The single pane flickers gold, then black, as though the lamp inside winked out. The static returns, loud as thunder, bleeding through the night. I cup a hand to my ear, trying to catch a fragment of Dispatch's voice, but only catch something worse. A child whispering, "Find me," and then laughter that fractures into mechanical clicks. The cloaked figure advances off the porch, sneaker still in hand, its form warped as it crosses the threshold. The missing silhouettes follow, gliding across the grass with impossible smoothness. My pulse drums. This is no longer a game of clues. This is a summons, and I'm its prize. Instinct screams at me to flee, but my legs lock. I glance down at the key and whistle in my other pocket, the only tangible things I've taken that didn't belong to me. The chorus of phantoms closes in, their faces blurred and silent, eyes reflecting moonlight like dying embers. I meet the figure's gaze, hood falling back to reveal the hollow socket of one eye, the other glassy and blue. In one motion, it holds out the sneaker. "Give it back," it coaxes, voice soft yet ringing through my skull. "Give it back." My mind races. Do I surrender the sneaker, the whistle, the badge? Which piece will free me? The map calls to me. Under the silo lies the truth, but I don't know the truth's price. The circle breathes around me, fabric rustling against frail limbs. The ground trembles beneath us. Soil shifts where the silo stands beyond the field, a distant bulwark in the fog. I become aware of a faint groove in the yard, a narrow trench I hadn't noticed before, leading directly toward the silo. It wasn't there moments ago. Now, it yawns before the barn fence, waiting. My eyes dart from the trench to the cloaked hand. The sneaker swings. My heart thuds. I feel the map's outline in my pocket, as though it burns. I make a choice. I pull the sneaker from the figure's grasp in one swift motion and toss it onto the yard, into the trench. The sneaker lands with a thud of suction, swallowed up by churned earth. The laughter stops. The static snaps silent. The figure's grin widens impossibly, and it points toward the silo. Without another word, it steps backward into the mist, merging with those carved effigies that drift off, coalescing into the swirling haze. Their forms waver until they dissolve entirely into the night air, leaving only the barn and the yawning trench behind. The porch beneath me creaks, and I realize I'm still gripping the railing for dear life. The lamp in the foyer window flickers back on, steady this time, bathing the house in sickly yellow light. My radio crackles, a single clear beep, then a voice. Dispatch, garbled but unmistakable. "Hayes? Sheriff Hayes? You..." Static cuts the sentence short. I lunge for my radio, pressing it to my ear. "Dispatch, you copy? The line sputters, then goes dead, the screen blinking. No signal. I curse, pounding the casing. 3 faint beeps answer me like a heartbeat, each one slower than the last, then silence. My resolve snaps. The trench calls like an open maw. I leap off the porch, boots planting in sodden grass, and dash toward the barn. The trench walls rise steep, slick dirt carved into a sluice. I grip the fence stanchion, hauling myself over the top. Splintered wood tears at my gloves as I descend into the gash. At the trench's bottom, my lantern beam picks out the other sneaker, half buried, the pair reunited at last. I scoop them up, leather cold and stiff as bone. The map floats free in my pocket, stained with dew. It reads simply, "Enter below." I look to the silo, its base ringed with broken planks and a half-collapsed chute. The moonlight slices through a gap high above, but the barn door stands closed and padlocked. The circular base is encircled by vent openings, ragged and warped. One, the one directly before me, hangs open, its metal grates twisted outward like jagged teeth. A faint click echoes, my radio in my hand. I jiggle the antenna. It glows with a soft red light as though waking from a coma. I press the button, the same 3 beeps, then a whispering voice. "You found it." I freeze. The voice isn't dispatch, it's the child's whisper. "I'm here." I shine the lantern toward the open vent. Inside, the darkness breathes, a cold swirl of wind and distant dripping. I swallow hard, pulling the key from my pocket. It fits the vent grate's rusted lock perfectly. I slide it in, twist. The lock clicks. The grate groans outward. I shine the beam through the gap into absolute blackness. A clamor of static surges through the radio. The map's final arrow aligns with the vent. Below me, beyond reach. I kneel, heart pounding, and squeeze through the opening until my shoulders scrape the metal. The wind roars, smelling of earth and mold. I lie prone on a wooden beam, suspended over a vertical shaft of noise and shadow. Below me, the wind whips at loose boards and rattles chains that hang like prison keys. At the shaft's bottom, a dim ring of light glows, an answer or a final question, beckoning me down into the unknown. I slip through the jagged vent opening, shoulders scraping cold metal as I lower myself into the shaft. The wind hammers against my back, urging me onward, even as each rung of the corroded ladder threatens to break beneath my weight. My boots clatter against the iron steps, echoing down into the yawning darkness. The radio pulses in my pocket, those 3 beeps again, rhythmic, like a heartbeat drumming me deeper into the earth. The ladder descends into a cylindrical chamber ribbed with rusted supports. Water drips steadily from above, each drop tinkling like a bell in a cathedral of stone. I pause, chest heaving, and sweep my lantern beam upward. The vent grate recedes far overhead. A distant square of moonlight, unreachable. Below me, the ladder terminates on a grated platform slick with moss. I step off into the shallow water pooling on the metal grating, boots shuddering as the algae shifts beneath them. A low hum vibrates through the platform, faint at first, then building into a tone so pure it feels like a diaphanous chord stretched through the air. I tighten my grip on the ladder rail and steel myself before moving forward onto a narrow catwalk that spirals around the shaft's perimeter. The catwalk's rail is spiked, rails jagged where rust has gnawed through. I trace its curve with my lantern, revealing walls slick with ancient inscriptions. The same symbols scrawled in the caverns, now etched deeper, as if carved by passing centuries of sorrow and fear. I follow the catwalk's arc until it ends at a heavy hatch set into the stone wall. A triangular symbol is stamped on its face, surrounded by concentric circles. My pulse quickens. This hatch must lead to the heart of the structure, the place the map's final arrow pointed. I push against it, but it resists, locked by some unseen mechanism. I withdraw the child's rotary dial from my pocket and examine its crusted rim. The dial's numbered holes correspond to the applied inscriptions: 1-6-2, 7-4, 8-8, the years carved on the oak tree. I align my finger with hole 6 and twist. The hatch shudders. A locking bolt retracts with a metallic rasp. I brace my shoulder and heave it open. A rush of stale air surges out, carrying the scent of rot and rusted iron. Beyond lies a tunnel sloping downward, damp walls streaked with mineral stains. I step through, letting the hatch close behind me. The hum intensifies, vibrating through the bones of my skull. I press on, boots echoing on the stone floor, following the tunnel's slick curve as it descends. Soon, the corridor opens into a vast chamber that takes my breath away. The space is circular, perhaps 100 feet across, its domed ceiling lost in shadow. At the center stands a monolithic pillar, rough-hewn granite rising from floor to ceiling. Around its base, dozens of personal artifacts lie strewn in a ring: a battered sheriff's hat, a child's bloodied toy car, a nurse's stethoscope, a wedding ring, a battered flashlight. Each item glints in the lantern's beam, arranged like a morbid wreath. I step closer, unease coiling in my gut. The pillar's surface is etched with names. Wedged between the inscriptions are the symbols I know so well. I reach out, fingertips skimming the carved names: JWKMEHMWHH, mine. Beneath each is a date and a word: vanished, lost, burned, drowned, claimed. Under HH is today's date, followed by fulfilled. My heart stutters. Fulfilled. The hush of the chamber feels alive, as though the stone itself breathes. A tremor ripples through the floor, and the ring of artifacts shudders. The flashlight rolls toward me, clicking on with a sputter. No batteries, no reason to light. I catch it reflexively. The beam sweeps upward, illuminating the pillar's crack, a narrow fissure where the stone splits. A final carving runs down the crack's length, a sentence etched in hurried script: "Release us." I swallow and shine the lamp into the crack. Darkness beyond, an interior void. I press my ear to the fissure, and the hum resolves into whispers. Urgent, pleading voices, layered upon one another, speaking words I cannot fully make out. But one phrase rings clear: "Set us free." I draw my pistol as the pillars beneath tremble again. A fragment of rock breaks away, revealing a cavity just large enough to slip my hand inside. I do so, heart pounding, and my fingers brush something smooth, a keyhole. There's no keyhole carved, just a depression shaped like the silver key I carry. I pull it free and press it into the cavity. The key slides in, clicking into place like a piece of a puzzle. The moment it locks, the whispers crescendo into a gale of voices, drowning out the hum. The ground convulses, and the pillar begins to rotate. Slowly at first, then gathering speed, grinding against the floor. The artifacts clatter, thrown outward in arcs. I stumble back as a doorway emerges in the pillar's side, a yawning arch lit by pale blue light. Through it, I glimpse a scene bathed in moonlight. The fields behind the farmhouse, the trench, the well, all converging upon a single point: this pillar. The black-cloaked figure stands at that point, arms outstretched, the red sneaker at its feet. The silhouette turns its head toward me, as if aware of my intrusion. A child's voice lilts from the arch: "Hurry!" I feel the air shift, like a door unlocking on the world. The chamber's dome trembles. Pebbles rain down. I turn away and run toward the newly revealed arch, floor cracking behind me, shards of granite slicing my boots. I pass through the arch into the night air, stumbling onto damp grass. The trench's edges smolder with ghostly light, the farmhouse sagging as if weary. Above, the silo shaft stretches into the sky, cut open like a wound. The wind carries voices, laughter and sobs and whispers mingled in the fog. I sprint toward the barn's fence line, clutching the key in one fist, my pistol in the other. The trench yawns before me, filled with murky water that glows from below. I step onto the lip, gaze drawn to the pillar's arch still open in the distance. Behind me, the earth groans. The silo shaft's grate clatters into place overhead, sealing off the chamber as though condemned. The farmstead shudders, timbers creaking. I feel the ground give beneath my boots and fall backward, sliding into the wedged fence stanchion. Pain spikes in my side, but I push to my feet and limp toward the trench. I pause at the edge, lantern flickering low. The trench's water is still, mirror smooth, reflecting the moon and the pillar's arch in the distance. The red sneaker lies by the water's edge, its pair resting on top of a wooden whistle. I kneel, gripping the whistle and the sneaker, preparing to toss them both into the trench. But something in the water moves, ripples expanding outward, revealing a face beneath the surface, a child's, pale and wide-eyed, mouth opening in a silent scream. I recoil, stumbling backward. The pillar's arch cracks shut with a deafening snap behind me. Moonlight snaps away, the trench goes black. The voices vanish. Silence crashes like a wave, leaving only the beating of my heart. I stumble to my feet and turn toward the farmhouse. Its windows glow one last time, then flicker out. I wipe sweat and blood from my brow. The key in my hand grows impossibly hot, burning through my glove. The map's final waypoint blurs in my mind. I know what I must do. Return to the vent, descend once more, and seal the pillar's chamber forever. But as I reach for the fence gate, the ground rumbles, and the child's face emerges from the trench again. This time high enough that only its mouth breaks the surface, whispering, "Help me out."